think we are live. Are you there, Chemo?
Hello, Ranty. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. Thanks for asking.
Haven't spoken to you for a while. What's been going on?
I've just been doing a bit of research. Been on this no pressure tour. Asking people what their opinion is on pressure, trying to demonstrate pressure, looking at the devices that so-called prove this pressure, looking at the assumptions of what the particles, the molecules do, how they react. Just basically trying to get a bigger picture on this gas pressure question.
Okay. Now I have a suspicion that you'll be doing a channel soon. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, hopefully this question, this question has brought the idea that it needs its own platform or a place where it can be addressed in full, where we can just go through the ins and outs of what gas is, where does it come from, where is it going, what is it doing, what is it made of, all of those questions and more. So hopefully it'll be a chance for, chemists, scientists, people who, delve into the alchemy or the arts of gases and chemicals and things like that, and just explain what exactly they are and what they do. Yeah, so
Good stuff. Good stuff. I hope it takes off for you. I really do. When do you think you'll have this show up and running?
well, there isn't really a date because I'm still doing research actually on what the gases are, what pressure is, and what forces are, and things like that. We have a general idea. We have certain laws. So I'm just trying to look at a few more bits of information, but hopefully, say in the next few weeks, a couple of weeks, something should be out there for people to discuss this in an open platform.
Okay, good stuff. I can't wait. Obviously, with Nathan not wanting to, have anything to do with your views on this, probably that's
Yeah.
the best place to do it. Is on your own platform. So I know that the Adam Meakin's been working with you to try and set your OBS up. So I'm looking forward to seeing what sort of design you've got. Have you got a format, or is there anything that you're going to incorporate in the OBS design? Or is it? And what's
Yeah,
what's your channel going to be talking about as well? Is it just gas pressure?
In terms of with Nathan, yeah, it was understandable. This single question was taking 2-3 hours of the show, for weeks upon end. So it's kind of not fair to have this one question overtake every other argument that's out there. So it's understandable. Because I was pushing this question, pressing this question. So yeah, I completely agree with that decision, because obviously the idea is to discuss the housekeeping questions, which you need to get through. And if there's one question that's been addressed weeks upon end, then something has to be done about that. So I'm completely fine with that. In terms of the channel, like I say, that's the platform for it to discuss at length. Whether it be a debate or a discussion, or just a general, information-based platform. So we'll put forward ideas. We'll try to eliminate the assumptions, and just work with the facts, I suppose. Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Good for you. As long as you've got a direction for your channel, that's all that people really care about. Is if you've got a topic that you're extremely interested in, and if you've got some kind of direction that the show's going to head in, I think you'll get a bit of support. So, as I say, looking forward to seeing that. We've got let's see from Lenny Harriet, a channel full of chemology. Amazing. Jim R says it will be called the Bollocks Channel.
Yeah. Well, like I say, it's not really from. It's for people who can explain and demonstrate forces, pressure, gases, the mechanics, how things work. The key is not to have any beliefs. We don't want the idea that we just believe something. So whether the particles are a model, whether they're moving like they tell us, it's yet to be seen. I don't think we've looked at biology in terms of evolution. We've looked at physics, cosmology, But I thought chemistry was safeguarded, because it's you demonstrate these things. But it turns out, well, we assume what the particles do, the gas particles, the chemical particles. It's all based on assumption. So again, a platform like that will be there to address all of those things at length.
Okay, good stuff. Well, in a few minutes we will be joined by Sleeping Warrior, and we will be joined by Brian, Brian's Logic. So these two will be joining the panel very soon. And what I'm hoping to get through is, there's a couple of things that I want to talk about, really. We've got the housekeeping questions from Bob the Science Guy. So Bob the Science Guy has put his own 7 plus housekeeping questions. So it'll be interesting just to listen to what those particular questions are, and whether or not we can actually have any answers for them here and now, and if not, maybe we can get something in the future put together to address those particular questions, because I'm glad that the Globe Earth has actually come across and sort of like offered a counter to Nathan's housekeeping questions. So it's something that I was pushing for a few weeks ago. And now that he's put the video out, I think it's only fair that we address it, because I know that he specifically did it because, well, I asked him to. So, yeah, it's good. Let's see if we can go through them. I also want to talk about the Globe Light Tour. Now, for any of you that aren't aware, there is the Globe Light Tour that's kicked off. So we're on day 4 now, I believe, of this Globe Light Tour. So if you head on over to Roxanne, the Globalist Denier's channel, and you're interested in that, she's actually live right now. She's in Milton Keynes, and obviously they're on the streets there doing some street activism over there, handing out leaflets, making people aware about the Globe Light Tour. So go and support them, watch them, give them a thumbs up. If you get a chance to actually go to any of the places where they're actually doing this stuff, I think on Thursday, for instance, sorry, hang on, what day are we on now? Let me get this up. So we're on, what day are we on today? We're on the 1st. So tomorrow we will be, well, they will be in Norwich. On the 3rd they'll be in Sheffield. On the 4th they'll be on Liverpool. 5th in Sunderland, 6th in Carlisle, and the 7th in Edinburgh, and so on. So they're the places. If you're interested, go along, look them up on the globeli.co.uk, and you'll be able to see all the destinations that they're heading to. So if you feel like that you want to support them, you know, they're up and running now. And also, so now that I've spoken about that, Globebusters, Bob, he's going to be doing a new show. I might play his video actually in a couple of minutes, just so that you guys can get a taste for his new show that he's going to be doing. Jennifer Winterburn, thank you very much for the super chat. Good on everyone spreading the truth, indeed. So we will get into the housekeeping questions soon, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this Globebusters video. It's about 7 minutes long. If you've already seen it, I do apologise, but it's interesting because the format is similar in many respects to what I'm actually doing here. So I'm actually looking forward to seeing what these guys can actually add to that, and if they can get anybody that's interested in doing it. So if you want to pop yourself on mute for just a minute there, Chemo, I'll play this video. And yeah, let's see what Bob's going to be doing in the future. Here we go.
In case you didn't know, I recently joined the Globebusters team. Globebusters has been my favorite channel for years now, and so I am very excited to work with Bob, Jaren, and Iru. For the last several weeks, Bob and I have been in communication about a new Globebusters project that I think could be huge for the Flat Earth Truth Seekers. Essentially, we're going to start a new YouTube series called Globebusters Pro, which will be on the Globebusters channel. We hope that it will become a weekly series, but we certainly need your help to make it a success. Please share this series information with everyone. What are we looking for? We are looking for professional witnesses to the Flat Earth, NASA lies, and government corporate space fakery who are willing to share their knowledge and experiences in a pre-recorded interview with Bob, Jaren, Iru, and or Ben, that's me, from Globebusters. What types of professions is Globebusters Pro interested in? Any profession where you have inside or relevant knowledge of the flat or stationary Earth based on your past or current work. Just email us at globebusterspro@jeranism.com. Don't forget the pro, and we'll be in touch as soon as possible. No, we are not interested in speaking with Globe propagandists, so don't bother. Examples: commercial pilots, surveyors, engineers, radar operators, military professionals, for example, pilots, snipers, artillerymen, communications, telecommunications experts, mariners, scientists, physicists, PhDs, professors, whistleblowers, CGI experts, shipping experts, weather experts, North Pole and Arctic travelers, and all others who have knowledge of the flat Earth or space fakery. Will the interviews be live? No, all of the interviews will be pre-recorded to prevent personal or classified information from being disclosed. We also want to avoid impersonation schemes of lying Globe charlatans. In addition, we will make edits to the video for time constraints and include relevant pictures and video, and so it may be a week or two before the interview is released publicly. Will the interviews be confidential? All interviews will be confidential in accordance with your sole direction. You can remain entirely anonymous, for example, a whistleblower with a pseudonym, semi-anonymous, for example, where you give Globebusters your name but not the public, or fully willing to share your name and contact information with everyone. It is your choice, and we will accommodate your diverse needs. Please be careful, as Globe sellout scum may potentially try to attack your profession and career by accosting governing licensing agencies, your employer, or your clientele to hurt you financially. Do not lose your job over this, and do not break the law by releasing confidential information. Understand these very real risks, but rest assured that we will take every measure possible to keep your information confidential if that is your decision. Just communicate your needs immediately so that we can avoid mistakes. Can I just detail all of my information in an email or letter? Certainly. You can communicate with us several ways via email, message, letter, phone call, Skype, etc. However, we prefer that you have a one-on-one interview with Globebusters via phone or Skype so that we can follow up with questions, but we are flexible. Remember, all communications must start by emailing a paragraph summary to globebusterspro@jeranism.com, and we will contact you soon thereafter. Will there be any fact-checking? Absolutely. We hope to verify the claims of all professionals and prevent imposters. Please provide as much detail as possible so that we can verify your position. However, if necessary, we will keep all of the fact-checking information confidential at your direction. Will every contacting professional be on a show with Globebusters Pro? No, unfortunately, we'll have to screen all potential invitees. We are trying to keep things interesting and relevant for the viewing public, and so we may not get to your profession right away or at all. Please don't be offended, as we do have time constraints and might not be able to get to everyone. Also, maybe chicken farming proves flat Earth to you, but others might not share your viewpoint, and so we have to screen these issues. Will each professional receive compensation? Unfortunately, you will not be paid. However, you will be compensated with the gratitude of our listeners and truth seekers everywhere. In addition, each professional from our series will receive a free 1-year initial membership to FE Core. Thank you, FE Core. That will enable you to continually contribute your thoughts and ideas to the community. Can I approve the video before it's made public? Yes. If you want to pre-approve the interview video before it is made public, that is your choice, so long as you tell us beforehand. If you decide that you do not want the interview public, we'll sadly but politely not release the video. Do I have to be a flat earther? No, you don't. But we are certainly not interested in globe propagandists. We invite all globe skeptics and geocentrists so long as you meet the professional requirements detailed earlier. How long will the videos be? We'll try to keep our videos under 30 minutes and sometimes much shorter, but the necessity of longer videos may arise. Interviews will generally be under an hour, depending on the situation. Finding a time that works for everyone for the interview may be difficult, so please be patient. If you only have a quick point to make, that'll be fine as well, and so some interviews may only last a few minutes. Doesn't Mark Sargent do something like this? Yes, Mark Sargent has a professional series where he has lots of great interviews. His series was instrumental for many awakening to the flat earth. Personally, Mark Sargent's professional series had a huge impact on me. We encourage everyone to check out Mark Sargent's series, and his channel is terrific. We only hope that our interviews will further help the search for truth. So what now? Email us at globebusterspro@jeranism.com and provide a summary explanation of your position, and we'll get back to you. Please let us know your confidential needs up front. Also, if you know someone that may be a perfect fit, inform them of this series and encourage them to come forward and share their information. Thank you.
So there we go. So we've had a new show with Globebusters starting soon. I'm not sure how soon it will be. Obviously, I imagine just down to who it actually is that can come on the show and whether they can get any of these professional people. But certainly it's a step forward in the right direction, I believe. And I wish them all the best. Chemo and Brian, are you both there?
Hey, Randy. Hey, Chemo.
You had a late night last night.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah, we did.
Sounds good. Sounds good to me.
Did you get a chance to review that Globebusters video?
Yeah, it looks good. That's a very good idea indeed. Absolutely.
Indeed, yeah. I mean, I think so too. Did you see it, Brian?
No, Randy, I didn't. I didn't have Google open. I just had Skype open and other things, so I didn't even look. I didn't even realise the show was actually on, or if you were looking at that.
Oh, right. Okay.
I'll have a look later on.
No worries. No worries. Have you had a chance to review Bob the Science Guy's housekeeping questions?
I didn't download them because they hadn't come back with them, have they? I thought they hadn't come back with the proper questions yet.
They have actually. Bob the Science Guy put a video out on the 29th, so a couple of days ago, and he's titled the video 7+ housekeeping questions for Globe Earth Debate Show. So I'm going to play them in a minute. I'm going to play them each one, and hopefully we'll go through that. I'm just going to wait for Tony to join if he's around at all. Let's see if we can't get a hold of him and prompt him to join, because he did say that he would actually come on. Let's just see. I did receive a message, but not from Riley at the minute. I might have to call him direct. You know what he's like. So last night we had a bit of a late one after George did his presentation, and then George kindly stayed on in the chit chat show to answer questions. I noticed that you and George have been having a bit of a back and forth on Skype. Is there anything to mention about that?
Well, George is claiming that I'm possibly either dishonest, my data that I'm providing is suspect, or I'm just incompetent. Now, what I said to him is that basically, because what kind of triggered him was he got an error message off of a sleeping warrior saying that it's evidence that's important, not maths equations. And he pointed out then that basically the sleeping warrior that I had posted math equations, but I just pointed out to him that it was just details, But I said to him, look, I said in Skype, I said, if you're not happy with the whole, or basically what I'm presenting is kind of real world data that gets in the way of his belief of a Coriolis involving a solid Earth, a Coriolis effect involving the solid Earth. Sorry, and he basically said, and I said to him, look, that all you've got is basically maths equations and claims of dishonesty. I said, at the moment. So I mean, he's at the posting something else there a while ago to me. I haven't even read it yet. But it's like if someone starts saying that someone else is outwardly dishonest and this kind of thing, it becomes just character assassination, really. And that's not really disproving what I put out there. And I put out there, if there's anything wrong, it certainly is not. And I don't believe there is anything wrong in it, but it certainly is not intentional or to be in any way dishonest. Because what's the point of that? Because it's out there. I put it out on the internet. I allowed him to take a photograph of the details. Now, obviously, they changed a bit because Saucy London pointed out that the calculations of the distance wasn't correct, which actually suited us more, which made it harder for George. But I mean, other than that, I gave a full rundown today to George on it, and I gave what the average speed of the plane would be from London to Lagos, and that, and I think it's just look, if somebody has a problem with the data or wants to disprove it, then they should go about disproving it, and not going straight to character assassination. Because he has no reason to believe that I'm dishonest, because I haven't been dealing with him before. So where did it come from? I don't have a history of that. I've been called dishonest a few times before, but nobody has come up with the evidence of it. That kind of a thing. As I'm sure with yourself, you've been called dishonest yourself many times, but nobody came up with the evidence. It's like you can't just make claims like that about somebody, without providing the evidence that somebody has been outwardly dishonest. Would you not agree, Randy and Kimo?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's just the nature of the topic that we discuss. I mean, it suits people to call us liars, without any kind of anything to back that up. So it is what it is. What can you do? I mean, you're not going to change people from saying that kind of stuff. You've just got to carry on. But the way you carry on is that you essentially just ignore it. I mean, I do, and just try and stick to the facts more than anything. I don't try to get into the drama side of stuff. So I think that's the best way going forward, is just to try and ignore that. A lot of people struggle to ignore. We are joined by Sleeping Warrior. Nice to see you there, Tony.
Hey, Anthony. Yeah, I don't mind. I'm not bothered by it. It's just that it's telling when someone goes straight to a character assassination. That means that they're under pressure. That's what I would say about that.
The one thing that I took away from last night, and I'm gonna put an image up here. So let me transition across and show you this. The one thing I took away from last night was when George said that if you go from the North Pole and you head towards the equator, essentially you'll have to account for Coriolis. So you'll have to basically the plane will auto-correct, or you will auto-correct the plane to follow the location where you're aiming for. So
yes,
that's the one thing that I took away from anything last night. So what I've basically done here is I've just created a quote-unquote hemisphere, and what we have obviously is the centre North Pole, which is on screen right now. So we have the centre North Pole, and if you're heading towards a destination at the equator.
One second, I'm not seeing that on Skype. Should it be just up on YouTube? I should be watching.
Let's see. I'll transition across and I'll share my screen so that you guys can see it. So 1 second. So let's share that. Okay, so you should be seeing this now. So from the centre North Pole, if you're aiming for, so you set off on your plane and you're travelling at, let's say, 500 miles an hour. So you've done a small distance. You've gone a small distance heading towards this destination. The problem is that as the Earth turns underneath you and you have to correct, and we've done sort of like this is where you set off. It's straight here, and then after an hour it's travelled to here. After 2 hours it's travelled to here. I've got this wrong actually. It should have been 6 hours, but never mind. So we'll do these in 2 hour increments. So after 2 hours it's there, 4 hours it's there, and 6 hours it's here. So it's travelled this sort of distance. So what you're doing is you're going to be trying to follow this destination and adjusting for that as you go. So you've got to make small incremental changes along your route. So even though you set off, you're starting to create a curve, you know. So after 2 hours, you're now heading in this sort of direction. So you're heading more southeast, and then as you go a little bit further, you're still chasing it. You're chasing this destination, so you're accounting for this curve. So eventually, what your plane is going to be doing is it's going to be creating this curve. And I know that my drawing here is absolutely terrible, right? It really is. But essentially, what you'd be doing is you'd be ending up chasing this thing all the way around, and it would just end up in a big spiral. You'd be spiraling around and around before you finally got to your destination, before you caught it, because you would be accounting for Coriolis the whole way by chasing the destination. And I feel that you know, the distances you would travel doing this would be untenable. You wouldn't be able to do it but there wouldn't be enough fuel ever to do this. You wouldn't be able to chase that destination around, traveling at 500 miles an hour from the equator. From the North Pole. You know, this object will always be out of range for the for the longest point. Now, if you knew that this destination here, so let's say you knew that it was going to take you 16 hours to get to the equator, right? Instead of setting off and chasing the destination, it would be far easier just to set a course over here, say. So you're setting a course over towards this direction. And what you would do is you go in a straight line heading this direction, even though your destination is south. And what would happen is, as the Earth turns underneath you, after you've travelled for 16 hours, the destination would arrive here, exactly where you've aimed for originally, not accounting for Coriolis. You just have to set off in a completely different direction. That isn't what happens. Pilots, and we're told, pilots aim for the location, and then they account for Coriolis by minuscule little incremental turns of just 0.33 of a degree every 10 seconds or something, which George mentioned last night. But what would happen is you'd end up chasing this destination and you'd never get there. Eventually you'd get there at some point, I would imagine, after a few days. But essentially you would be then travelling, in this direction, counterclockwise, as opposed to when you headed off south originally. And you'd have travelled 3 or 4 times the distance to get to the point. And it makes no sense to me, personally. Now, if anybody can model this, Heath Carmody or Slice Barkane or anything like that, and they can actually model this. You know, let's say a plane's travelling at 500 miles an hour, heading for something at the equator. How far would the plane have to travel if it's continually adjusting for Coriolis the entire way? How long would it take? How much distance would it travel, etc.? Because this is what we are told is happening in the real world. So I would like that to be modelled if somebody could do that.
Well, I said to George this morning, I said in one of my comments down, I says that if the plane going from London Heathrow, United Kingdom, to Lagos, Nigeria, it's going straight down, a straight line from north to south.
And you've travelled 3 or 4 times the distance to get to the point. Someone's got the watch page on.
But I said to him today, I says, if you want to travel in a straight line from north to south from London to Lagos, I said, which is a straight line down, I said you'd literally have to, the flight would have to start and go straight across kind of Amsterdam's Brussels direction and probably head to the Middle East because in his model or his belief, it's speeding up the further south that the plane goes. So it's going from starting out at 650 or something like that miles per hour rotation speed. It would be at London, and in Lagos it's only 6.5 degrees north of the equator, so it's 1,033 miles per hour. So not only are you trying to chase where the location is going, it's also moving faster than you. So you are going to end up moving in a big spiral. So it makes no sense. What you would do, what you're saying, if things were as you say, if things were as they say, then you would have to literally just fly in the opposite direction and meet it. That's what you would do. But they don't do that. There's never a flight ever that did that because it doesn't work. But that's how crazy it is. I 100% agree with what you're saying.
Tony, are you there?
I am.
Excellent, excellent. Listen, have you had a chance to look at the 7+ housekeeping questions by Bob the Science Guy?
No.
You haven't. Would you mind if we ran through them individually, and if we haven't got an answer for them immediately, we, hold our hands up and say we'll get back to you. But would you mind if we played them?
Is this a revision of the first phase that didn't make any sense, or is this still the first phase that still doesn't make any sense?
Yeah, this is the revised question. So Bob's actually formulated his own 7+ housekeeping questions. So I really want to go through these because he actually specifically did this, I assume, for us to review, and because he came on the channel and talked about this, it'd been nice to just sort of like give him a bit of an answer if we can. So are you up for that?
Sure.
Everyone else up for it? Chemo, are you there? Yes, right.
Yes, I'll have a stab at these. Let's do it.
Okay, let's play the first one. Let's get it done. Brian, are you ready?
Absolutely, one minute.
Going through all of those responses, there were just so many really good questions, and I picked out a few of them that I particularly like. Many times in the flat Earth, they will tell you that the moon, the stars...
There's no sound on Skype, Randy.
Is there no... Oh, right, okay, let me share...
I can go on to...
No, it's fine. It's all right. It's my mistake. I didn't put the... There we go. Right, okay, so let's just play it again. Here we go.
Are just luminaries. They're points of light in the sky, and we don't know what they are. So, if they are points of light, how can you cast a shadow on a moon crater? Or how can you see a shadow of Jupiter's moon Io on the surface of the clouds? How do you cast a shadow on something that isn't there, or how do you cast a shadow on a light source? Now, while you can see...
There we go. What do you think of that? How can you cast a shadow on the craters of the moon if it is a light source rather than a solid object?
Well, he can't prove what's causing the shadow in the first place. The claim is that it must be getting caused by these big planets that are in front of it, but how do you prove that that is being caused by it in the first place?
Let's just listen to the video thing again, because I'm not sure you got the entire question, so let me just play it again.
I picked out a few of them that I particularly like. Many times in the flat Earth, they will tell you that the moon, the stars, the sun are just luminaries. They're points of light in the sky, and we don't know what they are. So, if they are points of light, how can you cast a shadow on a moon crater? Or how can you see a shadow of Jupiter's moon Io on the surface of the clouds? How do you cast a shadow on something that isn't there, or how do you cast a shadow on a light source? Now, while
Tell us why the moon...
Sorry, go ahead.
Tell us why the moon didn't cast a shadow at the solar eclipse a few years back. It's supposed to be a casting of a shadow and we didn't see one. So on the one hand he says that big planets are casting shadows on little planets or little moons in the solar system, but we didn't see any casting of any shadow at the solar eclipse in 2016 in North America. Why is that? That was my first gut reaction anyway.
Brian, have you anything to add with that? Has he left the call? Right.
So I was on mute there, sorry. Many people have looked at the moon and obviously been able to see it very, very well, and a lot of the undulations are along it or whatever else, but I have yet to see, any pictures of the moon that look like a rock, they always seem to come from the same sources. Any pictures that are independent, or any video or pictures that are independent of the moon, I couldn't say for certain it's a rock. So Bob is working off of the pretense that the moon is a rock and that human beings have stood on it, landed on it and stood on it. Now, we have no solid proof, pardon the pun, that the moon is a big rock. As I said, the only times I see the moon looking like a big rock is when the data comes from people who want you to believe it's a rock. So that's what I would say about it. As far as the shadows go on it, that's just conjecture that there's shadows on it from X, Y, or Z. places. I don't know, But the interesting thing about it, I don't know about shadows from Saturn on it or anywhere else. Whatever he said was, I have never seen evidence of that. I'm not saying it didn't happen, but I have yet to see actual evidence of that. That any of those two things, anything that would be casting a shadow on the moon or the moon itself, is a big lump of rock. You remember one of the supposed planets is just a big lump of gas. You know what I mean? In a vacuum. You know what I mean? In their belief. So.
Anyone else got anything to add to this?
Well, if his reason is because it's a solid circular object, or it has to do with circular objects casting shadows, well, it shows that we really don't know what we're dealing with. We don't know what medium the moon is in, what it is exactly. We're going by assumptions. So it further illustrates that we really don't know what we're living in, right? Because if his idea would be, well, look, it's obvious, it's a solid object, there's a circular circular sphere casting a shadow, well, we know that's not true, right? So he's saying, well, what's the alternative? What's happening? It just shows that we don't really know what we're up against, really. We can't work it out, right?
Okay, right, well, moving on. Let's see if we can get the next one.
Or in water that has a little bit of powdered milk in it. In order to get a sharp, high-contrast shadow, the shadow has to be cast upon a solid object. That's what we see on the moon. That's what we see on the surface of Jupiter from telescopes on Earth. So how does that happen if they are points of light? Question number 2. If water always finds its level, why does the level of the water change during the day? So on your flat Earth with no gravity, what supplies the energy to move this water? Where does the water come from? Where does the water go to? What causes it to go up and down in a...
Who's thinking water there?
Oh, that question's easy. I don't know. That question is easy. What causes the water to move? Obviously, temperature. The sun will heat up the... is he asking what causes the water to move? We've got the animals. That's just one. But if you're talking about the motion, the movements, the waves, the tides, the high and low, that would have to do with the temperature of the sun and the low temperatures of the moon. They would have an effect.
I tend to agree with that, but what I'd also point out is that we don't have to explain or demonstrate how it works on a flat plane to point out that gravity's not pulling the waters towards the moon, because there's no interaction between the Earth and the moon. Like George Musa said, there is nothing reaching out to the moon. So we know what's not causing tides, but we don't have to demonstrate what is causing tides to know that your explanation for what does cause tides is false.
No, hold on. The moon probably does pull the waters, but not because of gravity, but because of the low temperatures. So obviously, when you have a low temperature,
so then it's not the moon doing it, then, is it? It's temperature.
Yeah, but the reverse happens in the daytime. So when the sun comes out, the water evaporates and the sea will become lower.
Right, so it's not the moon causing it then, it's temperature.
Temperature, yeah, that's right, temperature.
Right. So again, as I said, we don't need to demonstrate what does cause tides. We just need to point out to you morons that gravity can't be causing tides because we know it's not a force. So what's causing tides? Let's flip the question back to you rather than reverse the burden of proof onto us. We're not the one making the claim. We can spitball as to what we think might be causing it, but we haven't got anything more than a P900 and a compass, Bob. So why don't you demonstrate to us the cause and the effect when you know that gravity is not a force? So if the moon's causing it and it's not gravity doing it, then what is the mechanism that makes tides work on your model? Because it's not gravity, is it?
Yeah, because gravity can't do, it's lifeless, it's mechanicless, it can't do anything, it's not operational in any way. I think that's what they're missing the point. They think it causes things to fall, to move, which... Again, temperature is the key. If something is warm, it rises. If it's cold, it will fall down. Again, no forces involved here, especially not gravity.
Okay, moving on. Next question.
Regular cycle. Question number 3.
Randy, sorry, can you just say something about number 2 there before we go forward?
Sorry, yeah, of course you can, Brian.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot it was on mute. I was trying to talk on mute. A couple of things. Number 1, there was absolutely no evidence or data that absolutely solidly in any way supports that the moon is making anything happen with the tides, as that's only an assertion that involves gravity, and we all know the story with gravity. Secondly, there's all kinds of undercurrent stuff that happens in the deeper oceans all over the world that has no connection whatsoever to the moon, and these movements that happen, these different the Gulf Stream and all these kind of things, they are a constant part of a cycle that goes on here. There's a constant cycle, and those who have studied this will attest to it, that there's a cycle that goes on within the oceans, a constant cycle that's going on. It's like it's a constant cleansing that's going on, and it's a yearly cycle that happens. Now the moon has a monthly cycle, whereas this is a yearly cycle. So if it's anything, it's more connected to the sun and not to the moon, because these cycles are yearly cycles, not monthly cycles in the oceans. And also, what he showed there was a place that's probably more like somewhere in Britain or Ireland, where you have a huge amount of tide after coming out, and there's a high tide comes in and it goes out very far. Well, you don't see that in other parts of the world. Like I lived in Australia years ago, you didn't see this big massive tide change. It changed, but only a small amount per day. Whereas here, where I am in Ireland, every 6 hours there's a change, whatever, and when the tide goes out, it goes way out in a lot of places, and it comes way in. We only see that in certain places. So how come that's not happening everywhere, kind of thing? You know, anyway, there's too many. It's a bit of a trick question because there's a load of nuances in there, and it's just basically trying to reaffirm gravity, something that is not a force, something that has been proven that it's, as Anthony said, to do with the moon. There's no interaction between the Earth and the moon, and they even say the Earth, now the moon, the mainstream are saying the moon is within our atmosphere. The whole thing goes against Bob's argument there completely. You know, he's not even looking into like what the people who are the marine biologists or whatever who do watch and study what goes on underneath the water with the different cycles and stuff like that. He's not even taking any of that into account. He's hand-wave dismissing all of that. What is some kind of scientific research, and just saying the moon and gravity, two things that can't be proven. Okay.
Anything to add there, Tony or Spurs?
Yeah, I had a guy message me and say that if the moon is causing tides, how is it possible that I've got a low tide at high? How is it possible that I've got a low tide when it's new moon during the daytime? New moon during the daytime requires that the sun and the moon are in the daytime sky, and if at that point the gravitational pull from both the sun and the moon should be at its highest, and we should not have a low tide, because the high tide should be right where you're at, not the low tide. And he had a low tide, and I said, I don't know how that's possible. I'm not 100% sure about it, but I would say that you couldn't have one. And the more I've thought about it, you can't have a low tide at new moon phase if it's happening during the day. It has to be high tide, because you're underneath it. You've got double the effects of gravitational pull, and you can't have a low tide. But he's got a low tide.
Can I say one other thing on it, Randy?
Of course.
You know the assertion that the moon is controlling the tides, and it's due to gravity between the moon and the Earth. Well, that's something that no actual scientific research ever went into. I mean, can you find any actual data that proves this at any point in history? It was just an assertion that was put forward as the truth. That was it. It's like nobody ever actually proved this, or actually went and looked into it and outwardly proved it that with evidence that it was happening. It has never happened. I don't know of any study that has been done on that proved it. And anything that anyone ever did, they instantly assumed gravity and tried to whitewash. I'm sure anything they turned up that went against what they wanted to believe is the truth. There's been no evidence of that at all. No actual scientific study happened when that was first asserted. What scientific study was done before that assertion? Can you find it? Because I've never been able to find it. What?
Do you know what I want to know?
Yeah.
If we go back to the Marconi conversation, this is a tangent, and we'll come back off this in a sec. But we were talking about the Marconi transatlantic ping last night. Now, we had this after the hangout. We had a conversation. I'm going to recite it now because I want to know what ballers have. What's the explanation for this? Marconi demonstrated that you could successfully ping a radio wave signal across the Atlantic, right? That indicates clearly that the Earth cannot be curved, but they made a mathematical adjustment called the ionosphere to account for it. My question is this: if it was always assumed that the Earth was a sphere, and according to people like Simon Dan and co, nobody in the whole history of man ever thought that the Earth was flat, then if Marconi thought the Earth was a sphere, and knew and believed that the Earth was a sphere, what was his intention? What was he trying to achieve, even by attempting it in the first place? Because if he believes it's a sphere, he wouldn't get any funding from any like corporate sponsorship. Nobody would touch it because it would be a failure. Nobody would give him the funding to do the test. So what was in his mind if the ionosphere didn't exist, came afterwards, and he believed that it was a sphere? What kind of moron would try and ping data across the Atlantic to America and counter the curvature of the Earth? Because there must have been something in his mind to have this perception, because everybody, including him, would have known that it was a sphere. But why was he doing it in the first place if it was a sphere and the ionosphere wasn't invented at that point? What's the answer? Because there would be no reason for him to do it unless he was a flat earther. He must have known that the Earth was a sphere to even try it, right?
I totally agree. There was a lot more people who believed the Earth to be flat back in his time and afterwards, beforehand and afterwards, than we know about it. We're told that the world was always seen as a globe since back in, 2,000 years ago, and everyone forgot about the idea of a flat Earth. But you wouldn't go to all that effort and have the kind of, he wasn't somebody without knowledge. He obviously was ahead of the curve, pardon the pun, of his time, and he wasn't somebody without knowledge. He wouldn't have gone to that effort to completely ruin his reputation of the time and ruin chances of having a good career and all the rest of it, just to be totally wrong about something like that. He wouldn't do that. He obviously must have personally felt or known that the Earth is not a sphere.
He must have done, because if the ionosphere wasn't invented and everybody believed that it was a curve, what state of mind is he in to even try it in the first place? So what exactly. I want to know, what is the reason for why Marconi would even try and do this in the first place if everybody thought it was a sphere and but most importantly, the ionosphere had not been invented at that point. Obviously, the mathematical adjustment for the ionosphere came afterwards. I think everybody accepts and realizes that. But my point is, what was he doing in the first place? Was he a flat earther? Or did people actually think it was flat at that point? Because why you wouldn't even try it? Why would you?
Well, just before we go on, I just want to tell you tell yourselves and the audience about two guys, that if you've heard of the International Flat Earth Research Society. Now, not to be confused with the Flat Earth Society. The Flat Earth Society turned up in 2004. The International Flat Earth Research Society ended in 2001. Well, when I say ended, the last president of them died. And there are no connection between them and what people know of as the Flat Earth Society these days, which is a very dodgy misinformation unit. But the president of that society that died in 2001 was called Charles K. Johnson. And he was an airline engineer and mechanic, and a very, very good one. And he knew, because of how planes flew, that the Earth had to be flat. But moreover than that, the president before him was a man from London by the name of Samuel Shelton. And this man tried to create something that would hover in the air and wait while the Earth turned for that place to turn up underneath this vehicle he had created, some kind of a flying vehicle that would hover and wait for the place to turn up underneath it as the Earth spun. underneath it. And he found out that that couldn't be done. This guy even got he got some kind of an award with the Royal Something Society in Britain. Like, they couldn't ignore him. He was a very astute person. They couldn't ignore him. And they gave him some kind of award or membership into a certain club or whatever. But the thing about it is that there's two people that absolutely believe that the Earth to be flat. And a lot of people, I'm sure, believe the Earth was not a globe until after the moon landings. I think before the moon landings, there was a lot of people that were much more on our side, but we're told the opposite. So I could not see how Marconi would go to all that bother to ruin his reputation and to ruin his career with the idea that of being able to shoot a microwave signal across the Atlantic Ocean if he believed the Earth to be a sphere.
Well, it just shows you, doesn't it, that the moon landings were the panic from the elite. They had to do so from 1945, after World War II. They've explored the plane. While we were distracted with war, they were exploring, the plane. They've realized, okay, this place needs exploring further. 1950, they explore. NASA is formed between the 1950s and 60s. And then, they're realizing, well, we need to do something. Because I think when World War I broke out, flat Earth was on the rise again. And World War II, there was talk of...
Absolutely. So is it possible that World War I was actually education reset?
Yeah, this is what it was. Absolutely. Yeah. This was a huge distraction. And then if you think about it again, after the back of World War II, our grandparents, were distracted with the war. Then 1950s come. NASA is formed between 1950 and 1960, and then they're panicking. The elite are panicking. They're thinking, well, if we don't do something now, we can't have another war. We need to settle this. And they probably thought, well, is there a way we can go to the moon? Is there a way we can convince the people that we've been to the moon and settle this, you see? So I don't think people before the moon landings, like Brian's saying, were really on board. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been needed, the moon landings, because we know it's fake, right? So it wouldn't have been necessary. If people were like, yes, it's a ball, it's fine. You don't need to go to the moon. It's, we know it's a ball. And, you wouldn't have this. So from 1966 onwards, everything has changed. It's like you say, the reset has happened now.
And don't forget, in 1915, Albert Einstein introduced his theory of general relativity, which totally redefined and changed how we understood what we thought we knew about gravity. Mm-hmm. Now we know it's not a force. But he was telling everybody in 1915 that gravity is not a force. It's the curvature of space-time, right? Coinciding with the World War One. Is it not possible that they're trying to do away with Newtonian principles for gravitation for whatever reason? They don't want it to be a force for some reason at that point, but now they need it to be a force, so that they seem to be backtracking on that. It just seems to be totally confusing.
Yeah, they're changing. They'll do whatever it seems they have had to do over the course of history in the past 100 years or so to keep the whole flat Earth thing at bay. There's too much to gain from keeping it. People believing they're on a globe for them. There's too much power to gain, and it just doesn't make any like the whole. They're trying to get rid of Einstein now. Now they're trying to get rid of Einstein. Have you heard the most latest, Anthony? They're trying to get rid of Einstein now.
Yeah, they're admitting that Newton's been debunked, but they're saying that Einstein's next. And I'm like, really? What's going on? I don't get it. What's the play here? They're definitely doing something, but no one really knows what they're doing, let's be honest.
You see, the thing is, I don't think they wanted to lie. I think they wanted the control without having to lie. The idea is to have slaves and not lie to them to get them to work for you willingly, right? So if you don't have to lie to your slaves and just tell them, look, this is what I want you to do, this is how I want you to follow. If people do that, then everything's good. But they have to do something. So, people are questioning this authority. So they're trying to delay or dampen the question of the authority. Don't question authority. Don't ask us when we've told you already that we've done the research. That we've told you for 500 years. So it's definitely a panic on their half. But the question would be now that it seems they are not delaying it. They are allowing it to be released, to be talked about, to be open, to be common knowledge now today. You see?
I think it's damage control, Kimo. I think what they're at is damage control. It's like they still want to have. I reckon that it's possible that NASA will come forward and say in time that no, they never made it to where they said they made it to. That they hoped they would, and they believed it was a sphere, but the data kept on telling them it wasn't, and they couldn't get to the point of finding out. Their rockets wouldn't work where they wanted them to work, so they're going to try and keep it. They're going to try and keep space, but give us flat Earth. That's what I feel they're going to try to do in time. They're going to try to keep space, but give us flat Earth. The Earth is flat, but instead of space. No, this kind of thing.
I think it doesn't matter to them. I think as long as they can control you, it doesn't matter what the narrative is. So that if they have to lie to you, they will. But if they could tell you the truth, and you will listen to them, and follow their. Yeah, it doesn't. The information is not important. It's you, the individual, your work, your consciousness, your soul, your everything. And like I say, I don't think they wanted to lie, but it was too much. They went on so long, there'd be pandemonium. Oh, you've told us this long, and now why should we trust you, right? And I think that's what the problem is. It's the control. So the lie just happened to be as a result of, well, if we tell them the truth, what will they think? You see?
The man, Charles K. Johnson, I spoke about earlier, the very last president of the International Flat Earth Research Society, as I said, not to be confused with the Flat Earth Society. His subscriber list was growing massive in the 90s, and his house burned down mysteriously in 1996, and all he had was loads of documents and different proofs of tests he had done. He had spent since the late 70s or the early 70s trying to prove the Earth to be flat, and he said he was successful in doing it. He even was featured in an ice cream advert and some advert to do with Kentucky Fried Chicken. He had loads of interviews, audio and visual interviews, and they're not to be found now. There's the odd sparse one around. It's like, if it was growing so much in the 90s, then how come we're told that there was nothing for 2,000 years? So that's 2,000 years ago stuff. Who was it said? Someone famous said, give me a group of 7-year-olds or 4-year-olds and give me 20 years and I'll give you a new world. Someone famous like that said that. Famous person.
That's why the education is really, this topic is literally going to be won or lost in the meaning of words, the semantic meanings of words. And I know that the ballers hate the word semantic, so they use it against us always. But that is where the argument's going to be won or lost, because words have meanings, right? If it says no to force, then it means no. It doesn't mean yes. Look at Sly's most recent video. He's giving the definitions for stuff like harassment and perjury and stuff like that, and it dawns on me how hypocritical it is that they want to use semantical arguments when it suits them, but when it doesn't suit them, they use it like it's the poisonous chalice. And it's like, you can't have it both ways. Either words do mean stuff or words don't mean stuff, but either way you are going to lose at some point, because when people realize that no doesn't mean yes, then what's stopping the atmosphere from bursting into space if gravity is not the force that they need to explain it? It's not doing it.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's true. I think it was Aristotle. Is Aristotle's rhetoric? Is that the famous Aristotle's rhetoric? Is that what it's? I think it was Aristotle. He used to make a point before he debated anyone. Supposedly, if he existed, but supposedly he made a point before he debated anyone to go through the semantics of words. That to make sure that the person he was debating was on the same page. That this word meant this. And there was no argument about it. And each word had one meaning, if you know what I mean. And he made a point of doing that before he debated anyone, supposedly. Which would make a lot of sense.
That's why I just have any baller, anyone that's trolling on my chat, calling me names or whatever, I just say to them, is gravity a force? And they never answer me, because they know they can't say, no, it's not a force, because I'm just going to say back to them, well, what's stopping the atmosphere from bursting into space? Which, if you think about it, the definition of gas pressure requires, as Nathan points out all the time, it requires gas pressure to continuously push out in all available directions, right? Well, if that's the case, then how can you have a weight of air above your head? Because that would be pushing down on you, right, as pressure. But if the pressure's pushing the other way, because gas pressure pushes outwards on the insides of the walls of the container, then you haven't got a weight of the atmosphere pushing down on you. So, like Spurs would argue, then where's the pressure, right?
Yeah, because you need words of meanings. You would need
words got meanings.
Yeah. Anyway, I added Nathan.
Where were we? We were talking
Nathan
about Bob the Fallacy guy.
I've just added Nathan to the call.
Owen is into.
Oh, Alan's here as well. Excellent.
Yay!
Can we address him as Bob the Fallacy guy? Because we're giving him too much credit by calling him the science guy. The guy doesn't do science; he does fake science.
Bob
Let's
the
not call him Bob the
pseudo-science guy then.
Or Bob the Fallacy guy. Both work well.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay then, right. Well, let's listen to what Bob's got to say for question 3.
Number 3. It seems the major way that the flat earthers try and claim that the earth is flat is by showing the earth is not curved. They want to falsify the globe. So tell me, how do you falsify the flat earth? Question number 4.
Is that it?
Yeah.
There you go. What do you think of that one?
How do you falsify the flat Earth?
Well,
hang on. Maybe Bob the Fallacy guy could explain to us the burden of proof reversal fallacy.
I can play the video again because it is a little.
No, Anthony.
it can easily be answered, though.
Well, Anthony's already answered it.
No?
It's a burden of proof reversal fallacy. What he's saying is the flat earthers demonstrate that it's blatantly flat, and in so doing, debunk that it's got a curve. Well, they're trying to fight against the curve. Well, no, you've got to prove there is a curve. What he's saying is we show it's flat. Yeah, we do. That's right.
All right.
This is why Bob is the fallacy guy. Burden of proof reversal.
Yeah.
It's basically saying we can't find any curve. So how do you basically asking us, how do you debunk the flat earth? Because we can't do it.
That's how you do it. Proof curve.
Right,
How do you
question.
falsify
Well, hold on. He would have to
the flat
show if he did want to show, for example, like the mechanics of water. Like he could show, well, look, water can do this. It's not possible on a flat Earth at this distance for water to stay flat. So how would he falsify and show that it's not a flat Earth? It's by demonstrating what water, the mechanics of water, is what shows the Earth to be flat. That's the observations, right?
Yeah, and the complete failure to prove any curvature, which we'll come back to in a minute. I want to talk about Simon Dan's latest video, which is absolutely priceless. But let's finish with Bob the Fallacy guy first, because this guy's worth talking about when he's making silly burden of proof reversal claims. Utter moron.
What I would say about the chemo there about about the water thing. What they will do is they'll get a theodolite and they'll have a couple of posts in the distance over a course of a couple of miles over a frozen lake or something like that. And then what they'll do is they'll make a point of taking angular size change of the posts completely out of the equation and say that the post in the furthest distance is dropping below the curve. And that's what they'll do. And that could be several miles away, even though a theodolite is only good for about 300 feet.
Yeah, but that's the problem. He's talking about a mechanical. We're talking about the mechanics of water, not the observation of the atmosphere or what you see. So he has to.
I'm sorry. I'm just telling you what they'll do. If you ask them that question, they'll go out with a theodolite and put different posts into a frozen lake over the course of a couple of miles. And then go, see, the post in the furthest post there is obviously dropping below the horizon, because they're dropping below the mid-level on the theodolites crosshairs, completely forgetting that there's going to be angular size change. And that angular size, because they believe angular size change means it gets smaller in the distance, but it all stays the same height if you're looking directly across the top of the first post. The 10 posts on, that last post, the 10th post, will be still the same height at the top. It won't be. And Samuel Rowbotham proved this when he was proving the Bedford levels thing he was doing, because he lined up his telescope with the top of the first 2 posts. And he said, if it falls away after that, the Earth has a curve to it. If it doesn't, it's flat, and it didn't.
Okay, good. Move on.
I just want to add one thing. We don't call it the perspective hijacking curve calculator for nothing. And what between Spurs and Brian they're describing is how they take and equivocate perspective and use it to describe fluid dynamics. So saying, look, this is falling away from you. And then when we use a begging the question, proof of nothing perspective hijacking curve calculator, put it into a side elevation so you can see your own head, remove all aspects of perspective. According to that representation of the world, it should all be in a straight line and you should see everything all lined up. When you include perspective, the effects that they are describing are just the effects of perspective. I.e., when he describes the theodolite, you could do the same with the horizon dip. Well, what's the horizon? An arbitrary position where the sky meets the ground, which they will claim is dropping. Well, no. Yeah. That's what they do.
Precisely. So it's not a physical... The theodolite is just looking at an obstacle. It's not a physical thing here, Brian. So we're talking about the mechanics of water. They would have to demonstrate what it can and can't do. So we're showing that what it can't do is conform to the exterior of an object or something like this, right? But you're saying they would take an observation and say, look, as you go further away, this is the mechanics of water curving, yeah?
Yeah, that's if you ask them that question, that's exactly what they do, because that's all they can do, because anything else will disprove them.
Okay.
I'd
like to add something.
Just before you do, just my conclusion again. The way they do that is by way of the conduit is the mathematics. The begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking, curve calculations is the conduit to do that. So you're looking at an effective perspective and you're quantifying it with mathematics to say that effect of perspective is actually earth curve, the water bending.
Yeah. That's why George gets his whiteboard out and puts loads of symbols on it. And what he's trying to do is bamboozle you with mathematics to add credibility to the explanation, so that either you accept the explanation as mathematical, or it creates doubt into your mind as to the strength of the point against the maths in the first place. And then you just go, no, well, I don't really know then. And you end up being bamboozled by it. But at the end of the day, the bottom line is this. Maths doesn't prove what causes things. Maths explains things with numbers, and that's like colouring in by numbers when you were a kid. That doesn't prove what's causing the sun to set. If the Earth is supposed to be turning, maths isn't proving that the Earth's turning. The Earth turn proves that the Earth's turning. Maths is just descriptive. It's not causative, and that's the thing that ballers have to rely on with things like Coriolis. Well, with all their arguments, they need maths to legitimise their explanations.
And also,
right.
Brian,
if I may make a point.
One last point, Arvin, before I forget. Proving gravity. Let's say they've bent over backwards trying to prove gravity, right? As a mechanical force, Brian. So if they had this mechanical force, gravity, it was proven to do things, but then this could falsify the flat Earth, because they could say, look, we have gravity, it does what we say it does, and water curves the way we say it does. So this is why they're stressing to prove in all kinds of ways that gravity is a force, it must be a force, it has to be a force. Look, mass attracts mass, because they need something to falsify the flat Earth like that, which they simply can't do.
Did you have something to say?
I'm on mute, Arvin. I'm on mute. I'm on mute.
Arvin,
Sorry, Arvin, go ahead.
I don't want to say it.
I don't believe you.
Arvin, I'll go on mute as well.
Yeah, I had a very basic point. I don't know. It's kind of lost now. I still know what it is though. It's what they do with the perspective calculation and the replacing of perspective with curvature. The funny thing is that every time they bring in the side view diagram of the Earth and people supposedly standing on it and how the view would be, they are basically adapting the very nature of the circle and looking over it. They're already adapting the replacement of perspective within just the visualization itself. Just that little circle where people stand up to see something is adapted to the missing perspective of the curvature calculator. That's why they keep on using it. Just wanted to note that, that's all.
It's not missing, it's been hijacked. It's not like they've just left out perspective and could just add it in a little bit extra.
On purpose, of course.
It's hijacked it. It is perspective. All the effects of that calculator are the effects of perspective.
Right, but both the curvature calculator, to compare it with views, as it were, that trick is one side of the trick, and the other side is the explanation in the orthographic view on the circle. That's the other part of it. And some people just stick to using the curvature calculator on pictures, and others stand for the drawing board like a teacher explaining with that autographic view, and it seems to be split between these two types of explanation. Would you agree?
Yeah, I understand what you're both saying.
I've got a comment to make. So I'll speak to you in a second, Owen. But last night I gave a massive shout out to Nathan Oakley, who's on the panel right now, and to try and bump him up to 15,000 subscribers. And I know that he gained 4, but with me doing that, I actually lost 10. So
thank you very much, Andy.
No word of a lie. No word of a lie. I lost 10 subscribers after I shouted you out. So I'm going to do the same again with Arwin. So please don't unsubscribe. Don't unsubscribe if I shout Arwin out. But Arwin, tell us a little bit about your show and where they can find you, and if they get a chance to head on over there and subscribe to your channel.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Thanks. I guess. Yeah. Well, my channel is just Arwin. I come regularly on the Flat Earth debates, and I join other panels as well if I feel like it. I will go up to ballers if they are willing. Although my show is at 2 p.m. Amsterdam time, which is 1 p.m. London time. It seems that a lot of ballers are not really that awake. It's only just the trolls at that time. So I rarely do get them on, but when I do, it can be a lot of fun. And yeah, my show is every day, usually lasts an hour. And yeah, everybody's welcome in my chat if you behave a little, and especially if you have good questions.
Okay, very good. Very good, very good.
Can I second
thank you for the shout out.
Arwin show is definitely go and subscribe to Arwin, ARWIGN. His channel's great. I watch it often. Brilliant. Yeah. Give us the times, Arwin. Times.
2 p.m. Amsterdam time, 1 p.m. London time. Oh, which was it? Between 5 and 9 a.m. US time, and between 12 and 1 Australian time or something. So that was it.
So shout out from Nathan Oakley last night. Retracted. Give him a 10 subs back, please. Thank you very much. All right.
No, seriously, man. I've been on 14,900 and something subs for about 8 months, and we were ranting and talking about it, and he was like, just shout yourself out. And I'm like, well, actually, Ranty, you've got a channel to contend with now. You're actually a fairly substantial YouTuber in this realm. If you shout me out, I might actually grow. I didn't actually think for 1 second you'd lose 10 subscribers.
I shout you out, everyone leave. Everyone unsubscribed. But you gained 4, so it swings and roundabouts, isn't it, I suppose. Right, so I want to ask question 4. Let's listen to this guy now for question 4. Bob, here we go.
Earth. Question number 4. How many people know about this secret? How do they keep the secret a secret? What kind of control do they exert over their members to keep them from telling the rest of us?
It's consensus driven, isn't it?
Number 5.
You're the key there.
It's not that it's a secret, is it?
So how do they keep a secret? Compartmentalization.
Yeah, they rely on dumbing down the population and on hoping that people don't, respond or retaliate or questioning, isn't it? So it's don't question authority, don't question the government, and as soon as you question
on one side,
as soon as you question anything, you're put in a box, labelled, and just like now, what we find.
So authoritarian priesthood, and on the other side, they reach into your dreams and create defenders of their religion as well.
So the best way to describe it is if you have a football stadium full of football fans, and they all see the red team play the blue team, and one of the teams wins. Let's say the red team win 1-0. Right, but there's no TV stations in there to record it, and no one outside the stadium actually knows what actually happened. But everybody in the stadium knows that the red team won 1-0. If they then come out and tell everybody that the blue team won 1-0, the opposite of what actually happened, nobody else has got any other knowledge to it. They have to believe what was told to them because they were all in there, and there's a consensus. Everybody's saying the same thing. So if everybody concedes, or if there is a consensus that such and such a thing is true, then basically scientific consensus will always prevail because they wear white coats. So if science is telling us that we live on a sphere and everybody says the same thing, then it must be true that we live on a sphere, because everybody does appeal to authority. Nobody knows all the truth about the world that we live in, but everybody accepts that science must be right. So that's how they do it. Compartmentalize.
Can I give a
Hold
couple
on,
of
consensus
examples?
based on what?
Well, I was going to give a couple of
On
examples.
consensus, not on reality.
Oh, so
examples from-
absolutely everybody must. So how's that ever gonna happen? How is everybody ever gonna completely agree 100% about such?
Give them a
grand
good
things?
paycheck, couple of kids, mortgage. You'll be surprised what people sell out on.
Yeah, corruption, right?
Or people don't care that much. So I was going to say about what were the two countries that were at war? Oceania and what in 1984? What was the other country? I've forgotten the name of it now. Oceania and something else.
No idea. There
It's
you go.
just-
So we just
East Asia and Oceania.
Okay, so at some point during the book, they literally just change who's at war with who on the news, and a couple of people go, "I thought it was the other way around." Like Anthony's example with the foot. Just get told, no. Oceania are now at war with Asia, whatever, and towards the end as well, when he's. Could be close or they could be far away. Do you not think that's beyond our mathematicians? In other words, they can double speak and have the narrative be whatever they like. When you're making it up, you can make it whatever you like, and you can change it at will. You just have to label it with science, and people will think, "Oh no, they're right. They've said it's science." So they just fundamentally change the story, and nobody's any the wiser. The distance to the sun. How many times is that?
Is it me or is Nathan breaking up?
Yeah, it's breaking up.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying the distance to the sun is the other one. How many times has that changed?
Right.
And nobody bats an eyelid.
Yeah, I've said that. It was like 1 million
The
miles
moon's
away.
now inside the
Well,
Earth's atmosphere.
they keep redoing the calculation. That's the whole issue,
But-
isn't it? It's a calculation, not an actual. measurement.
Yeah, but in a nutshell, what it is, it's forced consensus. Now, look, when the ball earthers try to tell us or you, we've got the measurements, they're forcing their consensus on you. So, as a child, if you were 5, 6, 7 years old, and they're saying to you, the ball earthers, well, we have the measurements, we've done it for 500 years, people have been out there, they've done it, the child will be like, well, okay, sure, that's what, but as an adult, you're questioning this consensus, this idea. So I think why people are so angry is because, well, you've been fed something that you didn't have a choice to say yes or no. There was no choice in this consensus, Anthony. So this is the point. So it's not a consensus where everyone just agrees. Oh yeah, it was forced to you. Like try to let a ball earther force it today. What happens if someone tries to force or not force or just casually feed you ball earther information? How will you receive it? Will you accept it? So I think this is why people are so angry when they realize they've been lied to, you see, is because they've been tricked. It's not a consensus by, oh yeah, I agree because that person makes sense. The neighbor, he makes sense. So yeah, I agree with what he's saying. It's the fact that each individual has been forced. So it's not a consensus by, yeah, we agree. It's just they've attacked each person. So I think that's the main frustrations from everybody. So the ball earthers don't want to think, oh yeah, I was forced. I'm a free thinker.
Anything to add to that, Brian?
Yeah. For a start, what Bob is saying that it's a secret. It's like Bob. That's from him. That's totally illogical. If it's a secret, how come he's talking about it openly on the internet, and we're listening and we're talking about it? It's not a secret. It was never a secret. It's that we were given two options. One is flat. One is a globe. One of those options has a lot of movies made about it. There's all this supposed science connected to it, and we're taught all about it in school. The other option...
Is that really what he means? Or does he mean that knowing that it is the truth is the secret? And not the information itself? Because that is kind of true.
Yeah, well, yeah. I understand what you mean, but it's never really been a secret. As in, it's been there to see. It's just a case of, pardon the pun, opening your eyes. You know what I mean? All our lives. And we didn't do it until a couple of years ago. Other people did do it before us, but we didn't do it until a couple of years ago. And I personally, there's never been a secret. There's been two options, but one option seemed to have a lot more going for it, and the other option seemed to be a bit dodgy. And so people didn't take the other option serious. It's like a massive bank or a very small loaning agency. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like that. You're told that them loaning agency, that small one, they're no good. They have the bad rates and all that. Stay away from them. This big bank is the best one with all its advertisements and all the rest of it. It's kind of like that. Maybe that's not the best analogy, but
let me just ask Nathan a question with regards to the Marconi point from before. If the ionosphere came after Marconi, Nathan, and Marconi believed that the Earth was a sphere, what the hell would be in Marconi's mind when he decides to try and ping a radio signal across the Atlantic if he knows that it's a sphere? What would be the rational explanation for this from the baller's perspective? Because it would be complete lunacy. Would you agree?
Yeah, I can't divine his thoughts though. I don't know. But how should I know?
Well, there wouldn't
they
be a
just say
logical
bouncing
explanation
off
for
the
it.
ionosphere, that kind of nonsense?
There wouldn't be a logical explanation for it, though. Would you agree?
But don't they call it horizon skip or something?
Well, no. The ionosphere has not been invented yet, and he believes he lives on a sphere. So why would anybody in their right mind think that you could ping something across the Atlantic bloody ocean? It's like, that's completely taking the piss out of science. So if he either doesn't believe we live on a sphere, in other words, he's a flat earther, or he knows about the ionosphere even though it's not been invented yet.
What year?
Or he didn't think too carefully about it and underestimated what would actually be required.
What year is this, Anthony?
I don't know what year it was. I'd have to look it up. Marconi's successful transatlantic.
Yeah.
What's it called?
What's your point? That it makes no sense.
Maybe he was
it
a
doesn't make any
flat earther.
sense.
Maybe he was a flat earther.
You can't divine the guy's thoughts. It just makes no sense. That's all. That's the only conclusion you can draw.
Right.
Well, what I'm saying is, he can't be. Either he knew about the ionosphere, or he's a flat earther. What other explanation is there? I would have
said, Anthony, what map was the year that he was using? So whatever map he's looking at would have given him an idea of, okay, so I'm here and that is there. So what map did he have? Is what I'm asking. What year was it?
I don't know. I'd just Google the Marconi successful transatlantic radio data ping.
Yeah.
That's where
20th
the
century, I take it, right? So
I don't know. You'd have to Google it. I don't know.
I think you're forgetting that the explanation with the ionosphere comes afterwards, right? So it's patching the problem. It's not.
I'm relying on that.
Well, yeah. Well, that is the explanation. There is no other explanation. It's not like he knew it was there. He can't possibly. Well, it's a what's the word? An ad hoc explanation after the fact to square a circle that shouldn't be squared.
Yeah. So what I'm asking is, why would he try it in the first place if the ionosphere hadn't been invented, and everybody thought it was a sphere?
Why did he do it? What was the goal of?
Are you talking 1954, Anthony?
I don't know. I don't know what year it was.
Why did he do it?
That's what I'm asking. What was his intention? Was he trying to do so? Because if everybody thought it was a sphere and the ionosphere hadn't been invented, then what would his reason for doing it be? Because he would know that he lives on a sphere and it's impossible, right? So he's either a flat earther or he knew about the ionosphere before it was invented.
Was he testing the reach? Was he testing the reach of the signal? Was it like that?
No, but even if the reach of the signal was there, it would still be behind the curve of the Earth.
Well, maybe he didn't care for that kind of stuff.
1901. Yes.
1901.
No, 1895 is when he first did his first transmission breakthrough. That's what I'm saying.
We've got one here, December 12th, 1901.
It'd be great to know what his motive was.
Well, the only sensible thing I can think of is typically for that age, I guess, is testing reach. Just to test it out.
Yeah, but Arwin, if he believes it's on a
that's obvious.
On a sphere, it's going to fail, isn't it?
There wouldn't be anything to receive.
Maybe he didn't think of it. Maybe his occultic friends or whatever told him, "Yeah, don't worry about that globe edge. It's going to work out because it's actually flat." Who knows? What
maybe
was
he
his
didn't even give it the
actual
slightest consideration. Why are you contemplating the idea of some comprehension of the Earth versus globe Earth argument when performing these tests? He just probably did it.
No, but
Right,
the thing is,
that's my point too.
I know, but the thing is, if everybody believed that it was a sphere, and like people like who is it? Is it conspiracy cats or is it Simon Dan?
1900s, no, that was not the common law.
I know.
No, that came later.
I understand, but
I think what Andy's trying to
is,
say, if someone said today, there's a camera that can see for 2,000 miles, you would say, well, you're mad. There's a curvature. There's a ball. If we believe in the ball. So he's saying back then, there's a new device that can go this far. People would say, well, are you crazy? There's curvature. How can that be? So it's like someone building a camera that's specifically designed to see miles and miles, knowing there's no curvature.
Yeah.
Or specifically like someone making a camera to see through things. And what do you know? We have X-ray vision. But did anybody say before they started developing it, well, hold on, you can't see through things. That's obvious. Why would you even try?
What I would say about it is, though, to organise that, it would mean organising a situation that involves Canada, Cornwall, and County Wexford in Ireland, because he had a relay station in County Wexford or something like that. There's I can't remember the name, but
in that time it wasn't officially established necessarily that the Earth was a globe. Seriously.
No, it's true.
So why would anyone be assuming to do that? The only one that would even begin to probably start assuming that would be the government, and most of the people would be very suspicious of it at that time. The whole true change in the schooling.
I just think the timeline is the timeline is the timeline. It came afterwards because it had to be explained because people have a religion about being on a sphere, so you need to explain that kind of stuff. That's all it is.
All right, I get that it come afterwards.
But that basically means
what would you be testing in the first place?
It was stolen and recycled for the globe purpose, perhaps. Sorry. Nathan?
I'm saying the reason he would do it is because people have an inquisitive mind. People just like fiddling and trying things. That's it.
Yeah, but if everybody thought it were a sphere, nobody's going to give him the equipment to be able to do it.
But Arwen's saying that wasn't necessarily the prevalent rhetoric, enough so that they would even have in the forefront of their mind the idea that it wouldn't work because it's a sphere. They might not.
Right, radio. Look, it really, the indoctrination options on a mass scale really came into being with mass communication, starting with radio. That wasn't there at the time, not in that way. There was no public radio yet. Because that point was when people really started to get indoctrinated.
The point is that the cameras today, they're saying, are not seeing that far. What you're seeing is a mirage. So the cameras are not seeing around the corner to them. So when we say to them, look, they're seeing in a straight line for miles and miles, they're saying, no, that device is not doing that. It's not built to see for miles and miles straight ahead. They're arguing, so they're saying the same thing what someone should be saying to Marconi back then, is that your device it's not reaching, it's not going in a straight line, it would be going around. So, this is the idea is that
if people would have said that back then, he would have said, please leave me alone.
Exactly, Arwen. He'd have gone, that's my point, that's your point, and Arwen's and my point are the same, which is to say he didn't even consider it. He wouldn't have been asking people, do you think this will work because it's a sphere? He won't even been considering it. But after the fact, because he's independent and has a bit of tenacity, he's gone out and tried something just to see if it'll work, and it did.
So the same today, if someone built a camera and said, look, we can see 2,000 miles. So
no, you can't.
Air clarity will not allow it.
That person who's building that device secretly trying to prove, look, you can reach that far, you can see that far, even though...
No, of course not. That's just because we're in this argument, and you seem to have one-track minds, like everybody's affected by this argument because we're arguing about it right now.
No, I agree with Spurs. There would be no logical reason for him to be doing this in the first instance, unless he was a flat earther or...
Doesn't matter.
No,
why do you have to apply logic to people having inquisitive minds and just doing stuff anyway when it apparently shouldn't work? Men didn't fly, and we shouldn't fly, but we're flying. It doesn't mean that they're fighting against people telling them they can't. He might have been fighting against people that are telling him he can't. It doesn't matter.
if I may interject for a moment, guys, okay, not everything for everyone throughout time is all about flat Earth versus the globe, okay? He probably didn't care about it at all.
That's not the point.
I understand, but
Yeah,
if
that's not the
somebody
point.
suggested they could ping something across the Atlantic to America, obviously somebody's going to say you will not be able to do that because the Earth's curved, moron.
Oh, really? Well, I can tell you that the amount of people nowadays, on average, that would point that out, compared to the amount of people like that 120 years ago,
Hold on.
are like
Hold on.
hundreds of times more.
There's a word Anthony used. If he suggested, well, what we're doing is talking about suggesting, hypothesizing. Let's use that for a laugh. He's not. He's doing. He's not.
Maybe he did it in secret and told
Doing.
people afterwards. Have you ever considered that?
It just seems asinine.
It just
seems
some people
asinine.
are doers. So, I just think some people are doers, and they go, "I'm going to go out and do this," as opposed to let's ask the naysayers whether or not it'll work and what objections.
Right. Do you want some kind of public stunt? Then you'll need to inform everyone, and then you'll be subjected to authority-type issues. But if he's just really a curious, really scientific-minded want to know and doesn't give a shit, he's just going to do it in secret because he'll probably be smart enough to figure out that if he would do that publicly, somebody would try to stop him. Because that's been the way of things for hundreds of years. And really smart people know that.
Right, so if someone said today, I can build a camera, or I'm thinking of a camera that can see to America, would you say, yeah, sure, that's possible? Or would you say, well, you might have problems because the Earth is curving, if you were aboard Earth?
No, it's the situation isn't that, though, Spurs. The situation is, by comparison.
Yeah, but if I wanted funding from this, and I said, look...
Hold on, I'm nearly there. Someone has built a camera that can see to America, and then, following that, we have a load of fundy religious zealots on the TV, like the weatherman with the bloody Chicago skyline. So you can see this thing that you shouldn't see. Then the explanation follows. Joshua Newicki didn't go out going...
Nathan, what's wrong with your signal?
I think he's still speaking. Nathan, you're breaking up.
He's dropping, Nathan.
Who makes a camera that can see to the States, like with the example with Joshua Newicki, he's not wondering whether or not he can take the picture because it's a sphere, he's just doing it. And Marconi just did it, and then following that, you have people who try and explain it because of their religious belief in a sphere. He's not considering it. Why would you? And if you made a camera today that was now made, we've got the example of a camera made that can see to the States, all that would happen is the guy making it isn't concerned about whether or not the technical specs breach Earth's mathematics. He just makes a really good camera, and then the weatherman equivalent comes along and says this camera only sees this far because Earth's doing this. That's how it works. The guy making the camera doesn't care. He's not asking whether or not he can see to America. He just builds a good camera and it can see to America. And then the next...
Yeah, I get that, but the point is that I think, again, I'm trying to go what Anthony's coming from is that you need funding. If you want a ship to sail across the ocean and someone's going to back you and pay for you that this might work. Now, if I said, I have an idea, or I have a P91000, P1000, give me the two P, I can build a P2000, but I need funding. I'm simply saying, will these guys say, well, are you sure you could actually even see that far because there's curvature?
You've missed my point. This is the difference between thinkers and talkers and doers. The doers, like Marconi, have people following them up after they've done things, trying to explain why it doesn't work with their religion. Other people will try and get funding to go on a trip, and then there's the other guy, the doer, who's on the trip. That's the difference between this. We can discuss it and come up with the objections and reasons why it won't work. Other people just go out and do it.
What I would say about it is that Nathan and Arwen both have a good point, but so does Anthony. Nathan and Arwen's point that Marconi was a doer, and he just thought, I'm going to try this, and I'm going to see if it works. And he just went and did it. He was a doer. He didn't sit around postulating too much or hypothesizing. He went and did it, and hey, it worked. But the other side of it, what Anthony is saying, is makes sense too, because to do that back then, it wasn't just a case of you ran Canada and said, hey, listen, will you see if you can receive this signal, and I just do this thing. There was a lot of effort went into him doing that original one from Cornwall to I think it was Nova Scotia or something like that. Somewhere on that. Yeah.
Must have been a big boat trip.
Well, no, the boat trip was second. The first one wasn't the boat trip. That was the second one. That was after the tractor said he didn't do it. The first one was him doing it himself, using a 500-foot long lead and then a 500-foot long aerial connected to a balloon up in the air from Cornwall to Canada. Then they sent a signal back, I think, to County Wexford and then back to Cornwall or something like that. But that was the first one, and he did it in the daytime, and no one believed that it was possible. That's the story. I don't know, I wasn't there, but that's the story, that you can't do it in the daytime. So then after that, he proved his point when he went on a ship. He went on I think it was a naval ship, and he proved his point after that, sailing across the Atlantic. But originally, he had to put a lot of effort in just to get that to happen in the first place. And so, you're right, he was a doer, and he just did it and see what happens. Because there's no point in sitting around wondering will or won't. If you don't try it, you won't know. But Anthony has a point as well. It's like that's a lot of effort at that point, back in those times, to put his reputation on the line and maybe his career, and that to try something like that.
Hold on.
Might have gone very wrong.
No. Before you jump in, Arwin, just want to add one more thing. Sorry, I'm really sorry, Arwin.
I'll go. Yeah. He broke up. Of course.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah,
Hello?
now we can.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Sorry. So Robin Poe was linking up these relays that were designed to go at about 30-mile distance out in Ferrari for the military. And she's linking them up one at a time, and she gets to a point where she can't get one of the relays to work. She can't get a line of sight with the previous relay. Now, not because of anything other than just for the heck of it, she pointed her relay that she was setting up at the point source, 115 miles away. Now, she didn't ask, will Earth get in the way? She just did it, and it worked perfectly. Now, later on in life, she's come on my show and described this and said, even at the time, she hadn't questioned, oh, well, that must mean Earth's flat. She just thought it was peculiar. How come it's still working at 115 miles when the book says you've got to go 30 miles at a time? And when she told the bigwigs, the military high-up people that were in charge of this stuff, they told her to take it down. We don't like it. Take it down. We don't like it. Well, why? Well, because it doesn't conform with the way the Earth should work according to the book. And the book says do it at 30 miles and you don't deviate from the book. No, 115-mile relay. Right. It's just the book says no. So she's not giving it any consideration either way, but it didn't stop her from doing it. She just did it.
Right, but if it would be left like that, it would arise too many questions in people confronting whether that is there. So that's probably the reason why it was going to be taken down.
No, it was taken down because it wasn't done by the book. And then there's no questions need to be asked or answered. The book says 30 miles, exactly. Take it down.
Because if it was there, then people could potentially wonder, that's built into the system of the book, that if you just use what could be used, then people could potentially wonder about the Earth, well, not being a ball.
Yeah, well, 30 years later, she did. But 30 years doing that and there being any problem because no one was told about it. Whereas Marconi, globe religion.
I wanted to add one more point. I wanted to add one more point right after Nathan about Marconi then. So what could motivate him to do all that effort? If not whatever could fuel that, the money that would be required for such an endeavor. Well, maybe he had some people that had some ideas for radio networks or something, that were wondering, like, how far can we reach? Maybe we could commercially exploit this. That would be a very good reason for a scientist to just do that.
Well, if it was a commercial expedition, then people would say there's no money in this because there's a ball, you fucking idiot, right?
What year was this done in? if you don't mind me asking.
Yeah, but they still want to exploit it. Look,
Yeah,
the radio people, the
1899 and
radio people are
1901.
in on it. Okay,
Okay, so
it's very obvious.
So 1899 and 1900, essentially when they started making schooling mandatory, right? So if you think back then, they were then taking the kids and forcing them to go into school education, right? So that they would get indoctrinated with the heliocentric religion. Maybe he was a staunch flat earther, and at that exact time when he heard that schooling was being introduced at the start of the last century, he was like, hey, I need to check this out for myself before we start teaching the kids about a ball.
Right. Because things like that would have been questioned. Is it possible to see, like Nathan's saying, they make excuses for why we see how far we see. So they would have needed to test that, incorporate their answer, and either overlook it, dismiss it, brush it under the carpet, or which is what they've done. It hasn't really been spoken of. Should they be able to reach that far on a ball?
You're assuming a lot of information control for an age where there probably wasn't that much.
And you're assuming that there probably wasn't that much.
Well, why would there be? There was no communication technology to that degree.
Why does it seem more likely that the First World War, 1914 to 1918, why does it seem more likely that was education reset than fighting the Germans that didn't agree with us on something?
Of course it was. Very obvious. But I'm just saying, before that time, there was probably a lot of freedom. Things have probably been left a little to their devices, and a lot would have been discovered, Tesla around, all that, So maybe people could just do these things, and the governments and all that would just leave them alone at that time. Who knows? It might be because it was the silence before the storm, because it was already in the agenda of the big wigs and the high hats that there was going to be some kind of World War event resetting everything, so they would just leave everyone. Because it was all going to be changed anyway.
And just following on from Nathan's point before, when he says that there are people that just do things and people that don't. I mean, when I first bought the P900, and Tony, you'll say it too, because you bought your P900. Why did we buy the P900? Well, we bought the P900 to test the claim, just to see how far we can see. We went lower just to test the equipment, just to see if it does match up to the globe. We did that. We didn't have to do it. If we could have saved our money and not bought a P900 at all, because we were told that it was a globe. But no, we went out of our way, put money into a piece of equipment to check, see whether or not it actually matches up.
Can I just point out you got?
Sorry.
Can I just point out you got yours through a GoFundMe and I bought mine privately?
No, that was the P1000. I bought my P900. I bought my P900 as I started my flat Earth journey. Before I even had what you could claim a half decent channel. So
P900.
Anyway, I saw a guy reviewing the P1000 just after it came out, and he was quite puzzled. He was like, I don't really understand the point of this camera. And the only example he came up with was peeping Toms. That was it.
Nah, drones are much better for that, right, Randy?
Yes.
Nah, people notice drones. If it's sitting out your
Not
window,
if they're
looking at you
really
getting
quiet.
changed. Yeah, but a camera's much quieter from a 2 mile distance. You can.
You know way
certainly
too
see
much
through
about
curtains.
it.
Well, like I say, I hadn't even had the idea until I saw this guy review it, and I was like, oh yeah, like in Back to the Future, right? He's up the tree with the binoculars.
But going back to that point is that, we invested in a piece of equipment that we were told by science that we didn't need to buy it. But the only reason we bought it was because we believed the Earth was flat, and we went out and we tested it. So, we just do things. We do things because we're interested in things, and maybe this guy had contacts, maybe he had an idea that, yeah, actually, I believe the Earth is flat, and I'm going to put that claim to the test, and he did. And what they did afterwards, they went back to the globe, and they then incorporated the ionosphere to account for his findings.
Exactly.
They made up the ionosphere, which is what makes me wonder where the magnetic declination is the adjustment, like the ionosphere is the adjustment for why the radar signals do get across the Atlantic Ocean when they shouldn't. Perhaps that magnetic declination is the adjustment for why the continents don't line up when you have two observers looking south.
That and we've got more than one pole. You know, there's various different. Well, you've seen them, the various different quadrupole systems that they show on all the different maps. So it seems like there are multiple poles. So there's more than one reason for declination, but I definitely agree with you. That's one reason. Yes, absolutely.
I don't see why magnetics are really relevant for understanding the nature of the realm and layout, because it's so messy compared to the celestial.
Wow, that guy needs an exhaust.
I thought it sounded pretty racy.
It certainly did. Nathan, why have you changed your introduction from the shape of the Earth to the nature of Earth?
Yeah, it's flatter shape. It's flatter shape.
No.
It's a geometrical aspect.
It's an aspect of a shape. Absolutely correct, Darwin. So the nature of an aspect of a shape of the world? Nah. Nature of the world. The nature of the world is it's flat. That's not a shape.
And I just say it's rectangular looping. And then everybody gets all shouty.
I was just about to shout at Arwin.
Can we all shout at Arwin at once?
No!
No, he's entitled to his religious zealotry.
What? Rectangular looping?
I don't believe it without any recourse. I just see it as a very viable option. And I'm slightly more open-minded than the average person.
Does that mean that you believe that the sun Pac-Man's across the sky? Goes out one side, come back in the other side?
You know that's bloody red herring.
That's a simplification of it, Anthony, but yeah, basically, yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No, it has nothing to do with any freaking computer game that you've seen on flat screens in front of you. No. I'm just saying the realm may be confined within a loop, which would be a condition for the creation of the realm in that case, if it were there. So, but hey, the advantage is it could be proven. It could actually be proven to be there, given enough time and freedom to be allowed to.
So are we going to get back to Bob the Fallacy guy or what?
Indeed.
Can I just ask Nathan one question just before we go? Nathan, you know the quadrupole thing you're talking about? What's that of it? I've heard something about that before.
It's done loads of matches. Just type into Google magnetic declination. So Cami Nodal sent me the one I use on the thumbnail for debates. So if you look at the live flat Earth debate, the thumbnail itself is an azimuthal equidistant projection of a globe with a quadrupole magnetic declination layout over the top of it. So just look at the thumbnail for the main live flat Earth debate. That's got a quadrupole projection as the thumbnail with two guys standing either side of it. Most people don't notice; it's been there forever. But yeah, shout out to Cami Nodal. She's the one that originally switched me onto that like several years ago.
Yeah, because I'm not sure about the whole magnetic declination thing, but I look at that because I've heard about that, but I didn't make the connection. I have reasons for not being sure about the magnetic declination thing. I won't go into them now because I'd have to make assertions that I at the moment can't actually definitely prove. But,
well, the legitimacy of the declination, I would understand why you'd say that, but fact, it is in application. So what are you going to say? It is what it is.
I'll have a look for it. I'll have a look at it. Thanks.
Hey guys. Any proof the container has a curved aspect?
Oh, right. You're asking any proof that the straw man argument we are held to task on of a dome is true. That's what you're asking, basically, isn't it, Arwin?
Right.
Yeah, I don't claim a dome.
I know.
I don't even claim a container. I just draw.
What?
I don't
oh
even
my
claim
God!
that.
Let me
explain.
What did you do?
I force my opponent to make that logical inference themselves. I never draw that logical inference about the sky ever. Quite intentionally. So no one can hold me to task on it. But what people will do is draw the logical inference themselves and then hold me to task on it, which I love. Yeah, you can draw that. You can draw that logical inference. And I'll say this right here. Yeah, of course I draw that logical inference as well. I just don't state it overtly.
Right. Well, I have a very simple solution. Either it is relatively small and there is basically all very low pressure on one side and more pressure on the other, up and down, whatever you want to call it, or it could be very fast out there, or rather up there, and then it would all be filled with gas. So once you entertain the globe concept again, I could even say, okay, well, if you'd have to do that, it could kind of sort of exist still, but it would all be filled with gas, all of it. And you could probably, with some work, still kind of get it to work, still have balls spinning around one another, and so. But yeah, they're not getting over that vacuum anytime soon, I think.
Exactly, that goes without saying. Regardless of what the system is, you're always going to have that containment to have the gas pressure, and it will always fill the available volume. Those things are without question.
Right.
Right, next question from Bob. Here we go.
If the sun and the moon move in a circle over the flat Earth, what force causes them to do that?
It's called a straw man fallacy. So he's making us... Oh, sorry, he's not done. Sorry.
He's not.
Density disequilibrium.
Yeah, he's not quite finished. One sec, let me just put that
Sorry,
back
I'm doing an Anthony, sorry.
Right, hang on.
What force causes them to do that? What force causes the sun to move in a circle from the Tropic of Capricorn to the Tropic of Cancer and back? Number 6.
So circular reasoning, the Tropic of Cancer is derived from the path of the sun in the first instance. So to use the derivative, to explain the derivative, on his model is both a, a false dichotomy, a straw man, and what was the one I was just saying? I've already forgotten it already. But yeah, most of all, it's a false dichotomy straw man, because he's demanding that we take the position of a reified physical sun and moon above an azimuthal equidistant direction of a globe that is claimed to be a flat Earth, by him saying we claim that, which we don't. So
right. Why would you need a force to move a non-object?
We don't know what it is. So,
Exactly.
My answer to his question, if I was to just be as short and swift with the answer, is I don't know. I don't know what the sun is. But he's strawmanning us and saying, well, you say the sun and moon are a physical object moving in a circle in this path above this map. What the fuck? No, I don't. I've never said that. No, that's a false dichotomy. You're holding up that map as though we say that's the world we live in. No, it's a globe projection. So what you're saying, we should compare your globe with your globe projection and how it works when you reify what the sun is into a physical body travelling in a circle above the already used to design those concepts lines, i.e. the tropics. It's like, well, that's where it's derived from in the first place. It's this circular reasoning. That was the third one. There you go, circular reasoning. Bob the fallacy guy.
Yeah, I was going to say this is just illustrating that Bob is the fallacy guy.
Do you want to elaborate on that, Tony?
Maybe
the more he asks these questions, the more it supports the assertion that Bob is the fallacy guy.
Or that they're desperate for a model. They would even push a model on you to make you explain their version of what a flat Earth should look like.
That's the straw man, false dichotomy. So false dichotomy, giving you two choices only that are their choices, and you have to pick between them. False dichotomy. Straw man, he's making us use a model of his globe projected onto a circle. What? That's a straw man. I don't use that. That's not my model. What are you talking about?
Neither exists. Yeah. That's the point. So we're answering something that's in his mind, his construct, and he wants to go into his world and explain something that he's basically thought of. So
he's got a picture of it on screen. The sun and moon as physical bodies above a flat plane. The azimuthal equidistant map is asking us to explain. It's a straw man, red herring, circular reasoning. It's just three fallacies all in one.
It's simple. It's a globe projection of something that's not been entirely confirmed yet.
See, what we need from Bob is an accurate, well, if it's possible to make a model of any kind, is an accurate model that represents reality, not something that is based on presuppositions, assumptions, and then ask us to, explain his assumed presupposition. So what that means is he needs an accurate model First,
Right.
There's
of all,
only-
An accurate
only-
model at this point would
if
be
there
a
were
simulation.
such a thing, if
So-
there were
Hold on.
such a thing,
There's only one thing that fits that bill, Spurs, and that's a scientific model, which would be a model based on cause and effect reasoning being established through systematic experimentation based on a hypothesis based on an observed phenomena. Now, you can come to scientific models, but that's not what these are. These are pseudoscience models, and they're never going to be accurately describing reality. That, by definition, is a reification fallacy, hypothesization.
Well, exactly my point. He wants us to describe his assumption, which is where he's not justified to have a basis for his assumption. There's no justification for his starting point. So now he's built on something that he wants us to explain, which is absurd.
It's called the fallacy of misplaced concretedness. That's the fallacy. Bob, the fallacy guy, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen. Another fallacy.
Absolutely. Next question, Ranty. Well, unless anyone else
One
wants to do
second.
it.
I'd like to say something about it there. What Bob should be asking is what makes the sun do what it does above us, and what is the sun? Because regardless of what shape people want to say we're standing on, it's the question he should be asking is what is it, and what makes it do what it's doing, not what do we say it is about our flat thing, because the whole globe model comes from observations of the sun. Kepler's second law comes from the solar analemma, from the sun rising and falling in the sky throughout the year, and moving from the Tropic of Cancer to the equator, the Tropic of Capricorn, and back in, whatever. It all comes from that. And the sun moving faster around the Tropic of Cancer and slower around the Tropic of Cancer and faster around the Tropic of Capricorn. All this is all connected to Kepler's second law. All comes from observing the sun, because that's the only thing he was really able to observe. So all things connected to the Earth supposedly moving around the sun and in this offset elliptical orbit, all this other nonsense, and any other planets that are supposed to be doing this, all come from watching the sun. So we don't see us moving anywhere. We see the sun moving. And he's trying to put it back on us that explain this big thing in the sky that's moving.
Exactly. It's another fallacy to add to the list in this one question. This is another burden of proof reversal fallacy. You're absolutely right. So, as Anthony pointed out with the last one, spot on, Brian, this is a burden of proof reversal fallacy. They make a positive claim about what the sun is. It's a burning ball of hydrogen. And where the sun is, it's 93 million miles away. After they utilise the R value, reify it into a sphere based on the trajectory of the sun in the first instance, then reify Venus into the same size as sphere as Earth, and then apply Kepler's third law. So they're making a positive assertion, and they're asking us to describe something we've made no positive claims about, because we say we don't know what it is. But they absolutely make a claim about what it is, and they're now reversing the burden of proof, given that they have a positive claim. Spot on, Brian.
Yeah. Thanks, Nathan.
How far they have gone. I wonder how much lower they can really sink with their wizardry of complicated fallacies.
Oh, I joined just because it was as soon as I realised Ranty was covering Bob the Fallacy guy, I was like, oh, this would be great for a laugh. I love Spot the Fallacy.
Spot the fallacy, I like it. Right, question 6. Question 6.
By popular demand. What is the airspeed of an unladen swallow? Question number 7.
Now, I didn't get that.
Well, would he be carrying a coconut? Or only half one? Sorry.
Said unladen.
An unladen swallow.
What the fuck does this have to do with the Earth being a sphere? Would be my reply.
Yeah, I think.
Sorry, Randy.
No, I was just going to say, I think we can just ignore that question, because unless it has any cowbell to go with it, it means absolutely nothing to me.
Sounds like coconuts to me.
I think it's a reference to the Monty Python movie, not The Life of Brian, the other one.
That was yeah.
It's a reference to that one.
The Holy Grail,
Yeah,
they did actually argue something that was about that in a very short joke between the peasant and King Arthur.
No, you're right, Owen. They send out a swallow with a coconut attached to its leg, don't they?
Yeah. And then, well, but it can't work with the airspeed velocity, blah, blah, blah. What if if two swallows carried it together?
Okay, so this is nonsense.
Okay. Question 7.
How do solar and lunar eclipses occur on a flat Earth? You know, sometimes it's fun to just ask the flat Earth what I call rhetorical questions. For example, if the Earth is covered with a dome...
we see it. It's there.
Okay, so number 1, that's a good question, because I don't know the answer. So I don't have an explanation for how eclipses function, because I don't know what the sun or the moon is. Another burden of proof reversal fallacy. There is a claim based on the heliocentric reification of a model with the sun at the centre that Earth and Moon and Sun are in alignment to cause eclipses. Well, that's a positive claim about what the world we live in is, as opposed to us who go, what's the sun? Where's the sun? How do you know how far it is and what it is and how it works? Because you make the positive claim. So this is a burden of proof reversal fallacy. Do any of us say, oh, here's the mechanism for how eclipses work?
Well,
no, we don't. But they do.
You could bring in Rahu and Ketu, though. Remember?
You could what?
Rahu and Ketu.
You can if you want to, Arwin. I don't. I'm just giving my answer then. I
want an answer from the Globers. Why does the moon disappear for 3 days in a month?
Right.
When supposedly be visible right in front of the sun.
Exactly. They're the ones with the positive claim. Anthony's covered this. But they don't have an explanation. It just disappears, right? Oh, right. Oh, well, that's nice.
No, to be fair, they do have an explanation. They say it's because the sky is a lot brighter than the dark side of the moon. But if you look at the way that they depict it on Wikipedia, they show a black disc covering a blue sky. Now, I agree that that's what you should see. You should see a black disc covering a blue sky, and you should also see the casting of a shadow at times as well, because unless you're getting the direct solar eclipse, even when it's being cast into space, there should be people that see the casting of the shadow of the moon to prove that the moon's in the sky. We don't see that. And I'm like, this is ridiculous.
That's true. But just to keep it on Bob's question, it's a simple burden of proof reversal fallacy, because they're the ones with the positive claim in this regard. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. It's always a burden of proof reversal with Bob the fallacy guy, because that's what Bob does. I think we have to remember that Bob's appealing to his audience of drongos. Bob's probably more intelligent than this, but he's found a niche that he thinks is good, and that's just being appealing to the drongos.
Is it Hamlin's razor? Don't attribute to malice. What could he be explained by pure ignorance?
Can't remember.
I think that's correct.
Right, I'm just going to play the next about 90 seconds or so you guys need to all mute up here and bite your tongue, because he's going to go on a little bit of a rampage here. So I'm just going to play it.
I'm on mute.
Just have a listen. Yeah, we're all on mute. Here we go.
Because you can't have air pressure without a container. Where do meteors come from? For Sleeping Warrior, if you look at a triangle on a flat plane, the sum of the internal angles of that triangle are always 180 degrees. Yet you draw a triangle from New York to Los Angeles to Anchorage, Alaska, and back to New York on the Earth, and the sum of the internal angles is 205 degrees. How do you explain that? And finally, for Nathan Oakley, can you cite a single scientific article in a legitimate peer-reviewed scientific journal that refutes a finding or a natural law or a theory in physics by saying it's a logical fallacy? Just one.
There we go.
Right, let me deal with the triangles one first.
Go ahead.
So his claim is that on one model it does this, on the other model it does that. I was about demonstrating it in real world what it actually does, because that's what we need to see. We need to see if you make the 3 turns of a triangle on a flat plane, we know that it'll take you to a certain point. What does it do on the sphere, though? Do it real world and show us what it actually does. Don't conjure it out of your model and then claim that's what happens in real world, because we know that Polaris drops by 1 degree for every 69 miles you traverse. There's no evidence to prove that this is actually true, but it happens on your model, but you all believe it's true because it happens on your model. Well, the same applies here. Just because you believe that this is what happens on your model, therefore it happens real world, doesn't mean it actually does it real world. Let's have the evidence for your claim first, Bob, then we'll talk about the conversation afterwards. At this point, you're just passing the book to me because you believe that your model's true. Well, I'm saying, I don't know what model it is. Demonstrate your point to be true in the first instance. Let's see that you can make 3 turns on a sphere and then do exactly what you say, unless that evidence exists. What are we talking about?
You mean give us some cowbell for your claim before you ask me to refute it?
Yeah.
Any chance you can play out his question to me in one snippet and then leave a pause and I'll give a concise answer straight after it, Ranty?
No worries. Let's try it from about here.
Legitimate, peer-reviewed, scientific. Can you cite...
Here we go.
Explain that. And finally, for Nathan Oakley, can you cite a single scientific article in a legitimate, peer-reviewed scientific journal that refutes a finding or a natural law or a theory in physics by saying it's a logical fallacy? Just one.
No.
I don't believe you've ever made that claim, Nathan.
Okay, did you hear my answer?
Yes.
Yeah, your answer was no.
Jolly good.
I don't think Bob understands that that's not the claim on the table.
So, number one, he's asking if I could refute a claim as being a logical fallacy. Well, potentially, depending on the claim. Now, if the claim was fallacious, then it wouldn't matter whether or not I found a peer-reviewed journal about it. I would just need to demonstrate that it was fallacious reasoning. No need for any scientific... Seems that Bob's got a bit of an issue with authority. He must appeal to it rather than just figuring out for himself whether or not something is logically sound or not. So I don't need to go to a peer-reviewed journal to back up when I pull apart something as logically fallacious, like we've done today here. We've just pulled apart what you've said and demonstrated how it's logically not sound. Or to put it another way, prove you're Bob the fallacy guy by demonstration and example. Now, as for getting a peer-reviewed journal to, refute laws? Natural laws are laws. They're not going to be refuted as logically fallacious if they're demonstrably obviously a law, something that applies always, without exception, like the second law of thermodynamics that you mentioned, with a container being required, entropy increase, the gas would fill the space and all that. That's a natural law. Well, no, am I going to find a logically fallacious peer-reviewed journal disputing that? Definitely not. It's a natural law that pisses in the face of you having a sky vacuum. So, no, I don't need to really find anything to dispute that in a peer-reviewed journal. But if it was logically fallacious in any way, shape or form, I could just refute it myself.
Could I say something there? I'd like to hear the part that he mentioned before he mentioned Anthony's name, before he talked about Anthony and Nathan. And I'd also like to say that what we should do on our side is actually make 7 questions that are actually good for them to ask us, because their questions are horrendous.
Yeah,
that's a real insult. I think we should do these questions for them. If they're going to ask us something, we should at least give ourselves a challenge by making up the questions ourselves, because clearly they're not very good at it. It couldn't be more insulting to them, Brian. I absolutely love it.
Thanks.
So QE. So we finished that part, I think. QE did his show yesterday. I noticed that he had his super chat enabled. I assume then he has been monetized rather quickly, I have to say as well. Nathan.
Sorry, I was adding him to the call. Yeah, he has been monetized. Lucky old him. Took 3.5 weeks. Pretty amazing, I would say.
I wonder if it was anything to do with getting in touch with them on Twitter, which I suggested.
Did he do that?
What's up, man?
You can ask him.
Oh, hold on.
You're live, by the way.
Hold on a second, man. I got to do some fancy stuff here. Oh, jeez.
Tell him he's live while he can't hear. Quick.
You're live right now whilst you can't hear.
One second.
I don't think he knows.
No, he doesn't know.
I don't think.
You better not get his Cavendish balls out.
All right.
Cavendish?
Yeah. You know you're live, though, right?
No, I don't know I'm live.
You are live.
And you have your cam on as well. We can all see you.
That's fine.
Okay, then.
Is that a picture of your real face?
It's hideous. Put it away.
Yeah, turn the camera off.
So
Did you contact YouTube via Twitter?
I didn't contact YouTube. They got with me the next day and said it was good.
It's just you, Ranty. It was a conspiracy.
Wow. Yeah, I had to wait 4 months and more, actually, probably 5 months, and then I had to Twitter them before they actually got me monetized. So there we go.
No, it was less.
Google must like you.
It was less.
Did you not?
Oh my God.
Sorry.
It was less than 24 hours after they said, okay, they put the 4th check mark down there and they said, okay, you're monetized. Less than 24.
Wow.
Did you not speak to Death, Ranty?
About what?
Speak to Death? About your monetization? You should have just spoken to Death in the first place. God.
Did he get monetized real quick?
No, well, he's just pulling all the strings for everything, basically, isn't he?
I was monetized pretty quickly. There's a few days.
But you spoke to Death, didn't you? You just had a word with Death, like Quantum Eraser. And it was all sorted for us.
Well, he tried. Yeah, that was 2 years before.
So tell us about your show.
But it does help to know him, though.
I was going to say, you need to get to know the CIA side of this operation better.
No. But he has his special bloodline connections. You know which ones, and yeah, they somehow just know how to switch things.
And
around.
he's Jewish. That's all you need to know.
Oh, yeah. Try to be subtle. That's what you get.
So, John, tell us about your show. Tell us what's happening there. Tell us, are you going to be hanging around the Flat Earth debates, or is that you just concentrating on your show now?
Both.
Bit of cowbell, please. Cowbell.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please. Yes, we can
mute.
hear you.
I'm on mute.
You're on mute. Is everyone on mute?
Everyone's on mute.
Not me.
All right. So where am I at here?
I don't know. Where are you?
Well, they said we were live. Are you running the show right now?
I am.
So you want me to give out all this information over a live show? This is top secret, double secret probation stuff, man.
Okay, just leave, John. Just leave.
Yeah. My channel is going to be more focused on education, obviously, focusing on science, maybe some interviews with certain people, but it's not going to be a debate show. And I don't foresee that initially, but maybe down the line, possibly. How about that? Is that good enough?
That's good enough. But one thing we need to know: are you going to go on cam?
Am I going to go? What? Or who am I talking to? Pete Shea?
I'm just asking.
Pete Shea? What?
Yeah, Pete Shea's just asked. I'm passing the message on. Will you be going on cam?
Here's a message for Pete Shea. Ready? Get stuffed! Too funny.
So, can you tell people where they can find you, what times you'll be going live, what days, etc., what channel your name is?
Yeah, it's Quantum Eraser channel, and my times will be Tuesdays and Thursdays, but my live shows will go on Tuesday at 2 p.m. U.S. Central, 8 p.m. UK, and the tentative debut or launch time or launch date is Tuesday, September 17th.
Okay, and will you be allowing Globers to come on?
Like I said, initially it'll be an education channel, right? Maybe some interviews. I don't foresee that in the very near future. However, I won't put the kibosh on it just for right now.
Well, for the now, I'm still producing Ballbusters on the Quantum Eraser channel, and that show does have an interactive section to it. So technically, the answer to your question is yes. But Quantum Eraser channel will be warmly welcoming Globeheads during the Ballbuster show as it's done, which is to say there's an interactive section, typically completely unpopular, as in people don't join it until the show ends. But there we go. There is a door into the Quantum Eraser channel for Globeheads on the Ballbuster show when it's live, which does go out on Quantum Eraser channel, just to add that.
Well, since I've got you here, Quantum, did you get a chance to watch last night's presentation by George, perhaps? Specifically, his point that if you travel from the North Pole to the equator, you will have to be correcting, the pilot on the autopilot will be correcting 4 Coriolis, in a sense, chasing the target around the Earth.
George doesn't even know his own name. I mean, why are you asking me this stuff? My argument isn't about the Coriolis effect. And he doesn't know what the Coriolis effect even is. How many times have we had him on Nathan's show? I sent you a video yesterday. You were even laughing at him. Right? So, George is a certifiable retard. He should be institutionalized and then forced lobotomized. We all know this. So why are you guys asking me these stupid questions?
What?
If you don't answer it, can I?
Go.
Go ahead, Nathan.
Really?
Yeah.
Right. So it's an interesting turn of events, because over the course of the last few engagements between myself and George has been arguing for a lack of Coriolis effect, arguing that the Earth and atmosphere travel as one, flying in the face of multiple direction surface winds and the nature of gas itself, which is unbonded. But he's been going on this trip arguing against Coriolis in the face of me calling him senile for doing so. So George is arguing that Earth and atmosphere travel as one. That doesn't give you any Coriolis effect. But he's doing this whilst arguing and talking about Coriolis because he's senile. So if you're listening to George Netanyahu, you're going to be poisoning your brain with nonsense from a senile old git, which he is, because he's claiming we don't have Coriolis effect when he's just claiming to be describing Coriolis. Earth and atmosphere as one reference frame, no Coriolis effect. The guy's insane.
I still think it's important to understand the globe side of the argument, though. I mean, for me personally, I do, because, you know, that's how I'm going to advance my own research, is by getting somebody coming in and telling us their globe argument. It'll save me months of research on it. So I think that's why this is why I enjoy this format, really.
Why?
Yeah. Have you figured out what it is yet?
The globe argument, we've heard it for 3.5 years. It hasn't changed. It just gets more stupid. They're just stepping and fetching, right? They don't know what the Coriolis effect even is. They can't even define it. Why don't you start there? Ask them to define it, and then provide support, citation, and then provide demonstration. Good luck.
On a show coming soon. Speaking of which, we've had Globebusters put a video out. Has anybody seen it? I did play it earlier on this channel.
No, Ben's joining them. But well, yeah, give him a plug. Ben's joining them. Taboo Conspiracy 2 is his channel, and they're going to be doing actually a slightly similar format to you, but different in the respect that they're asking sort of PhDs and anybody who's working in a profession, a bit like Robin Poe. So my example, if I was to put someone forward for Globebusters Pro, which is their new presentation style show that they're going to be doing, would be someone like Robin Poe. So she comes along and says, I worked in the military, I was a communications officer, and my job was to link up these relays out in Ferrari. And I was told by the book to link them up at 30 miles to get line of sight. I couldn't get line of sight at 30 miles, so I pointed at the point source and got a connection at 115 miles, proving the Earth is flat. Well, she would be a perfect candidate to go on that show with Jaren, with Iru, with Bob, with now their new co-host, which is Ben from Taboo Conspiracy. Excellent choice. I'll definitely be tuning in to see that, and I really look forward to their presentations. But they're basically putting the word out at the moment with advertising on all these different channels to say, if you are a professional, it won't be a live show to accidentally let any information out that might not want letting out, but come and present your story. It'll be done in a pre-recorded format, like Ranty was essentially suggesting, but for one and all. But in this instance, specifically for professionals that have experienced something flat earthy in their field of work. So I can only applaud them. I think it's an excellent idea, and I think Ben is an excellent addition to the Globebusters team.
Yeah, I think the only difference with the Globebusters format is essentially they don't want to have any presentations done by Globe Earthers. So whereas my platform's open for both, essentially what they want to do, they want to have presentations done by Flat Earthers, and that's it, just Flat Earthers alone. So
yeah, it reminds me of Mark Sargent Strange World about 3 or 4 years ago. So he was getting subject matter experts on. It was sort of live, but in this instance it won't be. But essentially it's back to that. It's back to getting to the grassroots of subject matter experts who work in a particular field and have got an example like, I don't know, Brian Mullen, who might come along and talk about something that he talked about 4 years ago. But there's a distinct lack of that at the moment. I know Mark Sargent still does his show, but it's not necessarily subject matter expert focused all the time, and they're saying this show will be just that. I mean, obviously it might be involving some accounts, but at least they've got a really strong initial idea of what they want to achieve, and I like the idea, and I definitely like Ben. He's ace.
I think so subject matter expert testimony is once the people can verify who those people are. I think that's one of the strongest parts of our argument, because if we have people who are subject matter experts who are willing to be out there and be open and say, yeah, well, this is what I found in my career, and this is this and this is that from my sector of society in the career I was in, that would support what you are saying, then that, they don't have to be flat earthers, but if they're able to say, yes, I done this and that happened, and I have this degree or I have this rank or whatever, then that has to be the best argument, strongest argument we have. People who are actual people. But the problem is when we have subject matter experts and people can't verify who they are, that's when things get, even if they're talking what seemingly seems sense, that's when the argument is thrown out the window.
You mean subject matter experts like Toady Retard last night on Ranty's show? Listen to what this guy says. This toe tag retard, right? He says, so a couple quick corrections. He was correcting Anthony and somebody else on the show. So a couple quick corrections. We're not firing a beam of light. We're firing electromagnetic radiation. This guy is such a friggin' bonehead. Hey, Toady, clown show. EM radiation, that is all. Radio through gamma is light. You bashed your own head in with the shovel again, doofus. My word, you need to go back to your true vocation, picking up cans alongside of the road. Supervise, okay? Unbelievable.
What part of that? What was the context he was speaking about there?
I was firing lasers at the moon or some nonsense. He's a doofus.
Because Anthony, wasn't there some argument last night about how radio waves weren't affected by the atmosphere in the daytime, like light, and we argued against that.
Well, the argument is that refraction explains why we see behind the curve always, and it always just so happens to be just at the right amount that makes it just so happen to look flat, always, right? But he was saying that light doesn't refract with the X-rays or the gamma rays or whatever point you made at the time, and I wanted to see the evidence that was true. Now, the reality is, I saw in chat somebody said, "Don't you guys understand what a prism does?" Yeah, the problem is there's no hard barrier in the atmosphere to give you the what's the word, the gradient of dispersal that you would expect to see through a prism. That doesn't exist in the atmosphere. There is no hard barrier. So how is it the case that some of the light refracts and some of the light doesn't refract? And where's the line drawn, and what science supports that assertion? Otherwise, the light all refracts. So it's like you can't have it both ways.
Yeah, that was connected when we were talking about the whole microwave thing. That it was easier to get a signal in the nighttime than the daytime. It was all connected to that, wasn't it? That what we said. Well, there's a lot more atmosphere to deal with in the daytime, as in there's a lot more heat and that kind of thing, and light gets affected a lot more. I think it was George that was arguing against us there rather than Tony. Sorry, John.
Why would you even talk to this guy after he makes a statement like that? That we're not firing a beam of light, we're firing electromagnetic radiation. It's time to drop him from the call and call a Dunning-Kruger institution. Why are you even talking to this guy?
I'll be honest, I wouldn't have known the difference there when he said electromagnetic radiation. If I didn't even hear that, but if I had heard that, I would have had to Google it, because I wouldn't have known if that was what that was or was not.
I think we were talking to him because he's a better guy to talk to than the rumpus.
Yeah.
I don't see it, guys. I really don't. You're just wasting your time. Why talk to morons like this? And he says it with confidence. You are a doofus. Toady, a doofus. Simple.
But Quantum Eraser, I'll say to you, as I said to Pete Shea. Pete Shea was like, what's the point of saying, what's the point of all the debating? Is the same as arguments from 3 years ago or 4 years ago. I think the point of having someone like Cody there on the show and debating against whatever he would say, or George, or whatever, is that when people are listening in, newer people do get to listen in. They do get to see that our side of the argument is making a lot more logical sense than their side of the argument. And we're asking questions.
How
are we making more sense?
Yeah.
Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Well,
based on logic, right?
Yeah, our logic is more sound. We're in sticking with reality.
Really? How about the second law of thermodynamics?
What do you mean?
John?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you drinking, Arwin? Are you drunk, Arwin?
What?
Are you on the pop? Be honest.
Well, a little, maybe. Sorry, I jumped in.
Boom! I can hear it.
What do you want? What?
Cannonball!
I knew it. I can hear it. Like I can hear fear. I can hear drunk.
Fine.
Yeah, so how long you guys been going on? Who's on the panel here?
I am Brian. And I believe everyone else.
I see
Brian.
He's Brian from Ireland and nobody understands him.
Yeah.
I got Brian, Sleeping Warrior, Ranty, Nathan, and Arwin. Is that it?
I'm Randy.
I said Ranty.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Is there any more video footage from Bob the Fallacy guy, Ranty?
He did say something there before he mentioned your name and Nathan's name. He said something in between the last question and mentioning your name. He made another statement in between there.
About gas pressure in a container. He was talking about gas pressure in a container, wasn't he?
Was that it, yeah? I remember hearing something about that, yeah.
To Ranty.
I don't know where Ranty's from.
Oh, bloody hell. I hate this when this happens to me and I've obviously slightly, moved away or the mic stopped working or whatever's the problem and everyone just stops talking. You're like, all you want your guests to do in these moments is fill the dead air and keep the conversation going and eventually Ranty will return.
I'm here. I just went to the toilet. What's up?
We didn't need to know that. You could just
thanks a lot.
Yes.
Are you a stone lighter, Ranty?
Yeah. Not that kind of toilet. Not that kind of toilet. Yes, there is more info, but there is more from Bob the Fallacy Guy if you want to listen to this.
Go on.
Before you disappeared, Ranty, Brian was saying that there's a section in between or just before when he's talking about asking you, me and Anthony specific questions. There's a little bit in between where he's talking about gas and a container. I think Brian just wanted to hear it again so we can address it, but if you want to do that after you've played out the rest.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll just play the rest of this because he does go on a bit of a tirade, so pin your ears back, try not to interrupt, let's just play the video and then you can talk about it in a minute. Here we go.
Or a natural law, or a theory in physics, by saying it's a logical fallacy. Just one. Well, now that I have my housekeeping questions together and the studio is almost done,
It's not on
maybe I should
Skype,
start my own show.
Oh, sorry, it's not. My mistake. My mistake. Bear with me. Let me get this done. Share screens. Boom. Start sharing. Right, here we go.
The Globe Earth Debate Show. I could be your host. Okie dokie. I could bring in my science expert, my expert on everything scientific method, Heisenberg uncertainty. And for comic relief, I'll bring in Darwin. What do you think?
What?
There are even more great questions. For example, if level means flat, what is eye level? Does the sun have to speed up to make a one revolution around the Earth every 24 hours, depending on whether it's the Tropic of Cancer or the Tropic of Capricorn? According to perspective, if things go further away from you, they should decrease in angular size. Why doesn't this happen with the sun? Why do the stars rotate counterclockwise around the North Star, but clockwise?
Too many fallacies. Can't we deal with them one at a time?
How thick is the flat Earth?
Hang on.
We need to go back on a few of those.
Yeah. Okay, guys, just let him play out because there's only like 90 seconds left. So come on, just give him a shot. Here we go.
90 seconds is a long time when his pad's spinning off.
I was going to say, I've got 4 fallacies to deal with already. I've tallied off, so should I just keep tallying up the fallacies between now and the end of the next 90 seconds?
Yeah. Right, okay, all on mute. Here we go.
Counterclockwise around the North Star, but clockwise around Cygnus Octantis. How thick is the flat Earth? Do you have a working model of the flat Earth? Over 50,000 people went to the South Pole as tourists last year. If they weren't at the South Pole, where were they? How high above London is the dome? Where is the dome anchored? And how thick is it? We can see an atmosphere on Jupiter, which moves. How can an atmosphere exist on Jupiter next to the vacuum of space? And what holds it on? If the second law of thermodynamics says that an atmosphere cannot exist next to a vacuum, why can't the universal law of gravity give you a reason that it can? Can an apparent force exert a force upon you? Well, guys, I think I've asked enough questions for today.
Yes, you have. There you go, guys.
Did he say? Sorry, did he say? Did he say Cygnus Octantis?
Exactly. Cygnus. Yeah. Hold on.
Is that what he said? Cygnus.
Yeah, Cygnus Octaris. He didn't say Octaris this time, but he's corrected the second part. But he's still saying Cygnus.
He keeps saying it wrong.
Okay, so what are we going to do? You're going to play them back through one at a time because I haven't written them down.
Yeah, sure. One sec. Let me get back to where we were.
Internal angles of that triangle are always, and the sum of the internal angles is 200. Article in a legitimate peer refutes a finding or a
Let's
natural
get to the bonus
law.
round. Here we go.
I have my housekeeping questions together and the studio is almost done. Maybe I should start my own show. I could call it the Globe Earth Debate Show. I could be your host. Okie dokie. I could bring in my science expert, my expert on everything scientific method.
That's me!
And then for comic relief, I'll bring in Darwin. What do you think?
Right, here
Bring
we
in
go.
your sister.
You know, there are even more great questions. For example, if level means flat, what is eye level? Does this...
So if level means flat, what is eye level?
Hold on.
One second.
Let's deal with the first bit.
I have one question before that. Who's his science expert?
He doesn't have one. He just has a fallacy expert.
Sure.
So why is he starting that statement with if? If level means flat. What do you mean if level means flat?
If level means flat, what is eye level?
Why is he saying if?
Because he's not sure of it.
He's not sure.
Well, level technically doesn't even mean flat.
What?
What?
Level is parallel to, let's say, the Earth's flatness.
Citation, please.
So he just used the word flatness. Level flat, yeah.
No, but it's
Level
the
and
orientation.
flat. No,
Remember, a level. You
That's-
use it to figure out.
No. We're not talking nouns. We're talking descriptions. Adjectives.
Okay, I cheated. I used a technical device instead of parameters.
Yeah, of course a level isn't a flat. For my God. Hey, cannonball! Drink another one.
Well, technically, a wall has to be level when you're building it, and that's flat, but it's vertical. So
It's not curved. It's not a ball.
no.
the sun have to speed up to make a one revolution around the Earth every 24 hours, depending on whether it's the Tropic of Cancer or the Tropic of Capricorn?
Yes, is the answer to that. It does.
Oh, they can't let go of those balls. The Earth has
Sorry,
to be
you're
a
saying
ball. The
depending on-
sun has to be a ball. The moon has to be a ball. They just can't let
Hold
go.
on. He's saying depending on what these things were derived from that path.
Yeah. I mean, it's actually there. It actually, like the whole Earth moving faster one time of the year and slower at the other time of the year. It's based on, as I said earlier, observations of the sun, the solar analemma. The sun does move faster over the Tropic of Cancer. That's a known fact. They just reverse it into the Earth is moving faster.
Yeah, they're making a positive claim based on the extrapolation of that movement, and then again reversing the burden of proof and asking us to take the model they reify from the derivative and explain it on what he hasn't got a flat map of a globe projection on his screen this time, but that's what he's doing. He's another burden of proof reversal fallacy.
Yeah, absolutely. What he's saying there is actually mainstream. Like that's just science knowledge or whatever. That's just mainstream knowledge that happens. They say it only looks like that to us because we're actually the one moving. But it's mainstream knowledge that the observations come from that. That's where Kepler's second law came from watching the sun. But that's mainstream knowledge. So what he's saying there that it must. Are you telling me it moves slower over the Tropic of Cancer and faster over the Tropic of Capricorn? Yes, that's what we're saying, and that's what everyone says. So what I mean?
In his question, he's begging the question of his own outcome and asking us to explain an alternative position to his position that's come from the derivative of those movements he's asking us to explain.
Exactly.
My God, this guy is fundamentally, he's not stupid. He's just Bob the fallacy guy.
No, they're trying to trick us. They're trying to trick us to give us their answers for their problems.
Yeah,
you see it? They're legitimately trying to trick us.
Within his question, he's begging the question of his own outcome that he should be trying to prove. Instead, he's reversing the burden of proof.
What he doesn't realise is that what he believes is the alternative outside the box answer. Because when you see the sun move, then that's the sun moving. But his belief is that we move when we see the sun moving. It's us. So his side of the argument is the alternative argument. They are the hippies. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, he needs to prove that before he appeals to it, basically. But that's like I say, he's begging the question in the phraseology. So, well, obviously my outcome was already confirmed based on this derivative that I'm asking you to now explain, that I used to create my model in the first place, that I'm automatically assuming and making sure is the correct case when I ask you to explain an alternative position, that if we were arguing about, I'd straw man you with a model that I put on screen. And he's already done that, so I'm not...
Yeah, it's like he's driving in reverse and asking you, why are things going away from him? It's kind of like that, isn't it?
Next question.
According to perspective, if things go further away from you, they should decrease in angular size. Why doesn't this happen with the sun? Why did the...
Well, I'll tell you why, Bob, you fruitcake. There's a difference between terrestrial refraction and celestial refraction, so it's nothing more than a just dumbass false equivalence fallacy.
No. This is about perspective. But the point is, he is assuming the literal marbles hanging over us again.
No,
Correct. It's Owen's correct, John. Sorry, it's the not actual size of the sun that he's asking why it doesn't decrease.
Yeah, that's
why
that's
doesn't the not?
That's my game.
Yeah, but that's
the not
sure. But Owen's just the one. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm agreeing with you better.
Why does the not
Exactly.
actual? Oh God.
Go ahead, John.
Why? This is their position. Why does the not actual size, that is angular size of the sun, not decrease its not actual size as it moves from its not actual position? That's it. That's their question.
Perfect. I love it.
Next question.
Doesn't this happen with the sun? Why do the stars rotate counterclockwise around the North Star, but clockwise around Cygnus Octantis? How thick?
Oh my God, it's so difficult.
That's such a simple thing. It's like if you're standing looking on the equator, looking north, then the stars are coming over your right shoulder and dropping to your left. If you turn around and look south, the stars are coming over your left shoulder and dropping to your right.
What Bob is implying is that the stars and the sun and the moon rise in the east and set in the west and the north, and rise in the west and set in the east and the south. That's what he's implying.
This is a Tim Osman argument from 2015.
Yep.
This is dire. This is terrible. Not only that, it's another reversing the burden of proof, because he's asking us to explain something that they have and affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy assigned as a proof. So they say that if I travel from the north to the south hemisphere, I will observe, in this instance, anti-clockwise and clockwise star rotations in the southern hemisphere. So it's an affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy. If star rotation, and then the begging the question part, in the north and south hemisphere, assuming your outcome, then Earth is a sphere. So they say, I do observe, they don't, anti-clockwise and clockwise rotation in the north and south hemisphere, therefore the Earth's a sphere. So it's a begging the question, affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy, which he has taken as their proof and reversed that burden onto us to explain it. 2 in 1.
2 in 1, 3 in 1, because he's an absolute moron. Counterclockwise and clockwise are not directions. That's his first problem. Like you said, this is a 2015 argument from Tim Osman. It's retarded. An incoherent second grader can reconcile this in less than 3 seconds. Thanks.
I just want to just reconcile it for anybody who doesn't know. All the stars rise in the east and set in the west, save for Polaris.
Exactly.
I really think we should write those questions. We should do that. That would be really a good thing to do. Questions for them, I suppose.
These are dire. These are terrible. I mean, we shouldn't be able to smash these on the fly in one show. Given that our questions are still all unaddressed after about a year and a half, we shouldn't be able to demolish their questions in a session. But we're doing it one by one on the fly. It's pathetic.
just want to give a massive shout out to Julie Bennett in the chat, who sent me a PayPal donation today. So thank you very much. It came in really handy. Right, let's go on to the next question. Here we go.
Octanus. How thick is the flat Earth? Do you have a word?
How thick is the flat Earth?
Well, we know
that's a very question.
Sorry.
Or more
gonna
than
say the same
11
thing.
miles.
Exactly, more than 12k.
Yeah, I mean, for all we know, it could be the 12k could be the absolute bottom, seeing as we've only ever dug that deep.
Yeah, given we've only dug that deep, where'd you get your R value?
Next
Flat
one.
Earth? Do you have a working model of the flat Earth? Over 50,000 people went to the South Pole as tourists last year. If they weren't at the South Pole, where were they?
Hold on, model. Hold on, the model. Bob, the science guy? Models are pseudoscience, Bob. Why would you, with a science title, be talking about pseudoscience models now? Is it because you don't know what science is? I'm thinking yes.
They don't know what models are. What kind of model are you talking about, Bob? You talking about runway models, computer models? Which one? Right?
Well, in my rectangular looping model, I have absolutely no problem whatsoever with a southern globe of the heavens rotation point. No problem whatsoever.
Let's see the spinning ball tard model. How about that? Let's see your working spinning ball tard model.
I just want to add that, like Arwin, things work perfectly on the Dick Earth model. You know, you've got power rotation in the southern and northern testicle sphere.
How does the globe of the heavens work on that? Exactly.
It's two. You've got a north and a south testicle sphere that they work on perfectly.
No. No, mine is a little bit more carefully thought out, but it's okay.
How dare you? Dick Earth is very carefully thought out.
I could bring in my
The best response I heard to that question, show us your flat Earth model. I read online, it was some commenter said it to a flat earther in the comment section of the video, and the flat earth guy said, open your door, walk out, look around. There you go. They got no response.
So what was the next thing? We span through it a little bit after the model question.
Yeah, no worries. Here we go.
High above London is the dome.
How
Where
high?
is the dome
How high above London is the dome?
anchored?
And where is the dome anchored?
So that's called a straw man fallacy. So what we point out is that we have gas pressure here on Earth. Obviously, we are breathing it. We definitely have gas pressure. The necessary antecedent to have gas pressure is a container to press upon. In line with laws like Boyle's law and the second law of thermodynamics, the gas will fill the available volume that it has available to fill. And the volume is the amount of space in the container. So we point out that without the container, there can be no pressure. That's in line with natural laws. Now, I personally don't take the logical steps to assert what the sky is after stating those facts and natural laws. So it's interesting you should be asking me about debunking natural laws with fallacy, because that's projection on their part. They try and debunk the second law of thermodynamics by asserting fallacy about what gas does and about gravity, which there's no scientific evidence for. So, yeah.
Okay, let's see what else we have.
How thick is it? We can see an atmosphere on Jupiter, which moves. How can an atmosphere exist on Jupiter?
Hold on. We can see an atmosphere. We can see an air sphere. We can see a gas sphere around a light in the sky. Where is the light in the sky that they claim that light is, that physical gas? Is it in a vacuum? So you're saying you can see gas in a vacuum? not filling the space, violating the second law of thermodynamics, Bob. No, you can't see that. That's something you reify into existence based on your heliocentric model. So, no, you can't see gas violating the second law of thermodynamics through your telescope.
I'd like to see any proof of this supposed hydrogen ignition in the first place. No?
No, he's not talking about the sun. He's talking about his fairy tale Jupiter or Saturn or whatever it is.
Oh, great.
Okay, let's go to the next one.
Vacuum of space, and what holds it on? If the second law of thermodynamics says that an atmosphere cannot exist next to a vacuum, why can't the universal law of gravity give you a reason that it can? Can an
Oh, God. He's 100 years out of date. The universal law of gravitation, number one, is not a natural law. It's been superseded. You don't supersede natural laws. The second law of thermodynamics is not going to be superseded. It's a natural law. Gravitation, on the other hand, has been replaced by the bending of a conceptual medium known as space-time, giving rise to a non-force that you can think of as a force, but isn't actually a force, but you can treat it as a force, even though it's not a force, called gravity. Now, the law of gravitation isn't a law, so we can just dispense with that. The second law of thermodynamics, however, is absolutely a law that would dictate that the gas would fill the space by way of entropy increase until it fills the available volume. So your law doesn't trump an actual law, especially as it's 100 years out of date and replaced by Einsteinian fantasies of bending of conceptual mediums giving rise to non-forces called gravity. So I don't know where you're getting the law of gravitation from. It isn't. The second law of thermodynamics absolutely holds true, though you will observe entropy increase and the gas will absolutely fill the space. If the sky was a vacuum, the gas we breathe would fill that vast never-ending space and we'd all be dead.
Yeah, they don't even know what the universal law of gravitation is. Like you said, it's not a law, but they don't know what it is. How many times have we cornered them on that? These guys post the equation. That's not Newton's equation, you friggin' clowns. Right?
Yeah, it's always got big G in it. Where'd you get G?
Dude, buddy.
They tend to make assertions and then want us to make assertions, like to do with all kinds of things, what the sun is and different things like that. It's like they want us to do what they do, and when we won't do it, then it's like if Bob the science guy was listening to this and listening to the answers that we give him to these questions, he would say we're avoiding answering them. It's not we're avoiding answering them. It's that he's asking questions that he believes that he has an answer to, and that we don't have an answer to, without knowing. Like no one that seems to have an answer to, not him or his side or us, or what the sun is, for instance. Like it's like they're wanting us to make these assertions, so then we can be attacked on. Hey, you said this, you said that, but it's like we're not going to do what they did. If they're stupid enough to believe stuff that has not been proven, then that doesn't mean we have to do that.
All they do is mindlessly parrot wiki or whatever they heard from their ball-tard congregation. As soon as you scratch Formica deep underneath it, it all falls apart. Their epistemology is wiki. That's what it is. Clowns.
Right, let's see the last one. I think this is the last one.
Apparent force exert a force upon you? Well, guys, I think
Let me just go back to that.
Can an apparent force exert a force upon you? Well, guys,
Can an apparent force?
No, Bob, you complete muppet. The clue is in the word apparent, not actual. Can a not actual force put a force on you? Well, interestingly, you've just referred to a law about a force that's been superseded by a not actual force. So maybe you can square that circle when you're trying to debunk an actual law of nature, i.e. the second law of thermodynamics, and the entropy increase that would take place if the sky was a vacuum, rather than this nonsense.
This is a belly laughing joke, man. And the funny part is, he thinks he's an intellectual. That's the freaking truly hilarious part of all this. I mean, he's like an Elmer Fudd doofus. I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed.
I've got a follow-up question for him. I've got a follow-up question. Given that the answer is no, a not actual force, an apparent force cannot put any force on you. Given that a not actual force, an apparent force, can't control or force anything to do anything else, then given that gravity is a not actual force, where do you get off using the 100-year out-of-date superseded by the not actual force of gravity when explaining a debunk for an actual law that isn't even overcome by gravity anyway? So our argument on the debate when people assert this utter horse crap is to say, no worries, Fundy, we'll give you gravity. You can have it at 200% force, both Einsteinian and Newtonian. You can have them both. It's still not going to overcome entropy increase. Gravity never did.
That's it.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I said there to I think it was Dean. I said it to one night on Randy's show. I said it to a couple of them, but I remember saying it to Dean. If I have a thought about doing something, but I don't do it, is that not a pseudo force? As opposed to a force, maybe is me actually doing it. So if I think about going out and digging the garden, but I don't do it, that is a pseudo force. It's like it never became anything. So does that not describe a pseudo force? What do you think about that?
Well, a pseudo force, in my opinion, my favourite now going to be always go to for a pseudo force is going to be the Coriolis force because it's topical. And the Coriolis force would be in an example with a roundabout and a drone. It's the force that makes the drone fly towards you and fly away from you as you rotate underneath. So you let go of a drone, it hovers above the roundabout on the outside edge, and you rotate underneath. Well, the force, a non-force that's being described in the Coriolis force, is the force that makes the drone actually fly towards you and actually fly away from you. Well, it's not. It's completely stationary. It's not flying towards you and flying away from you because there's not actually any force on it. It's stationary. It's a not actual force of it flying towards you. Non-force.
An apparent force.
Apparently, it's flying towards you and flying away from you. But it's not. It's stationary. You're moving underneath. So the apparent force is the thing moving that drone, but it isn't moving. So that's a not actual force. It's not causing anything. It's not doing anything. It's not actually moving it. It's stationary. But it looks like it's flying towards you, right? No, you're rotating underneath. But that's the not actual force of it flying towards you, which it doesn't. Well, that's gravity, a not actual force. It's not actually doing anything. It certainly isn't holding gas on. Even if we took that fundamentalist religious nonsense to heart and accepted that it was true, it still doesn't overcome entropy.
Oh, that's a good description. Good description.
Well, anyway, so that was Bob the Science Guy, everybody. So his channel can be found
Is that it?
here. Yeah, it is, I'm afraid.
Are you telling me we've debunked every single one of his newly formed, took 2 weeks to form housekeeping questions in one show? On the fly? Amazing. That's the biggest pile of garbage ever. You should consider yourself an abject failure, Bob the Fallacy Guy. All you've done is given us a string of logical fallacies, as we totally expected.
Well, in the meantime, so if anybody wants to go over and watch this again, you can find it at Bob the Science Guy. There's his channel there. Right, so yes, I mean, who knows? They might have a rebuttal to our rebuttal. Who knows?
Hey, that knucklehead about 5 months ago, somebody told me, I was in Discord, I think it was Jose, shout out to 24/7 2.0 Discord. He said, hey, this Bob guy is talking about a certain science subject. He goes, go over there and post a comment underneath, right? So we were sharing screens. I went over there and I started post. I posted one post, and that doofus banned me after one post. Everyone was laughing, man. Ban me after one post.
Okay.
What a clown.
Speaking of bannings, John, you messaged me and you said that some of the comments had been removed off, I assume, my videos. Can you tell me a bit more about that? Because I do have a few Globers as moderators here, but if they're removing comments, can you tell me what happened?
Yes, I posted a comment, the same comment that I brought up against Toady Moron. That short little comment, a couple sentences, right? Just testing it out. I posted it and then refreshed 2 minutes later, and it was gone. Off of that, under your video last night.
Right, okay. I might have to address that. But in the meantime, listen, I need to address some people in chat here because obviously there's a question for Nathan, which I'll get to in a second. But people just need to understand the formats going on here. This is a chit chat. And in the chit chat, I'll allow anything to go. So if, people are saying that I'm being unbiased or being biased in this particular section, well, obviously I'm a flat earther and this is a chit chat. So I will talk about stuff and I have nothing to hide here. I can talk about whatever the hell I like. People can come in and they can say whatever the hell they like to. It's the same with globe earthers. If we have a panel of globe earthers come in, they can say what the hell they like too, right? So that's the chit chat format. So you've got to understand there are different formats on this channel. When we go down to the presentations, I'm completely unbiased. The same when they actually go into a debate with each other, I am unbiased. And obviously if anybody goes to court, again, unbiased. But in the chit chat format, anything goes. So suck it up, people, and just understand that I have different formats here. So, right, so there was a question for you, Nathan. And it was to do with the centrifugal force is an apparent force. Is Nathan claiming we cannot feel that?
We can't feel a non-force. The car propels you forward. That's the force you feel. If the car changes direction and you're not physically restrained in that direction, you'll carry on moving in the same direction. Now, if you're going to tell me that the centrifugal force threw you against the side of the car because from your reference frame in the car, it appears like you went towards the right-hand side as you turned left, that's the car moving about your position and you not being restrained in any other direction than the backrest of the seat. Well, no, that's not. There's no magical ghost forcing you to the side. The energy and the force is in the car and in the car turning and you not resisting that force because there's not enough side bolstering on your car. That doesn't happen if you've got a nice BMW M5 and it's got side restraints that hold you in when you do a sharp turn. But if you don't, you feel that non-force. No, just the car turning. That's the actual apparent force, not being anything physically happening other than a change in direction from an actual force.
Okie dokie. And lastly, I want to just ask this question from our favourite globe earther, Jose J.G. Gonzalez. Photos from space. Not asking about gas pressure in containers. Photos. Don't let Nathan and Quantum Eraser hand wave dismiss them. Please ask them.
There are no photos. There are no photographs.
Okay, no, that's fair enough.
Go ahead, Nathan.
No, I think he's reasonable. I mean, what he's saying is, don't debunk the medium the photos come from because that leaves me with no argument. So I'm going to say photos of the gas lamp in Narnia. Yeah? Don't go to Narnia being fake, Jose. Just debunk the gas lamp, right? No talk of bloody Narnia not being real. That's unreasonable, Jose, okay? Just debunk the gas lamp. What I want to know is how that gas lamp's working, considering there's a time dilation problem in Narnia, right? That doesn't make no sense to me. Now, don't tell me about Narnia not being real because that's not the point here, okay?
And they don't know, these clowns don't know. They keep on saying photographs. There are no photographs. They don't know the difference between photographs and CGI. This is pre-2015 stuff, Jose. I mean, this is nonsense. Give me a source. I need the source file of your photograph. Go ahead. Have him post it in chat. Can he post it somewhere? I want a photograph. Do you understand, Jose retard?
Okay, guys, so I've been going for about 3 hours, so I'm just going to round up now by saying to people, if in just under an hour's time, we have Globebusters going live, and it's called Exploring Electric Gravity. So tune in to have a little listen to that. In the meantime, thank you, everybody.
What the hell?
Have you got something to say there, John?
Electric gravity? What on earth is happening out here? Oh my God! Never. Go ahead, Branty. I'm sorry.
No, if you've got something to say, spit it out.
What? Electric, invisible, three-toed gnomes. Electric ones. You have to prove gravity first, right? Prove gravity first. What is gravity? Define it. Then scientifically validate it. Electric gravity? What is this, some type of electric banana? My word, people.
No.
Get a hold of yourself.
No, not electric banana. Banana's real. It's an electric schnozberry.
Oh, man. You know what? Let's deal with that. Before you go, Ranty, this electric universe, listen, there's no doubt that there's some postulates from the electric universe theory, whatever that may be. I've read up on it some years ago. There's some half-decent postulates, right? There's no doubt about that. But let's not forget that the electric universe people are baltards. Okay? They are baltards. If they're posting postulates of this ever-expanding universe with all the flaws, second law of thermodynamics flaws, all the flaws, then it's time to take stock in what these people are about, don't you think? Thanks.
Bobbity. Plasma.
Anyone got anything to say before I round up?
Yeah, why don't you have some more people come on and talk about plasma balls?
Shout out to anybody in the chat. Anyone in the chat that knows about plasma balls, email me, ranty@rantyflatearth.com, and I'll get your presentation shown specifically for Quantum Eraser.
Oh, I know somebody. Mr. Grim V. He's a really nice guy.
Oh, yeah, Grim V, what a knucklehead, man. He follows the tattooed Jabba the Hutt, Uncle Fester Ken Wheeler, right? Who tried to disprove the double slit experiment by showing single slit diffraction. This is tantamount to trying to debunk liquid water by showing an ice cube. That's how stupid this is. My word, Pete, got me all fired up this morning.
Shout out to Grim V.
Can I shout out my show? So 10 p.m. UK time, brand new, spanking new, extended Flat Earth debate uncut and after show number 946 goes out at 10 p.m. UK time.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Make sure you listen to 946. It is a massacre of baltards. You'll love it.
I was going to say I don't normally, because obviously they're daily and I could plug them all day every day, but I don't. But in this instance, that's why I've plugged it, Ranty. So yeah, I do specifically want people to go and tune into that show. 946 is well worth watching. But yeah, so tune in. Nathan Oakley, 1980. Be here or be sphere.
It's glorious.
I have your channel up right now, so please don't unsubscribe from me like you did last night when I mentioned Nathan's channel. I lost 10 subscribers by asking people to go over and subscribe to Nathan. So he gained 4 and I lost 10. Thank you, well done, Nathan. But, you know, trying to push this to get to 15,000. So I have Nathan Oakley's channel up right now. I'm going to copy and paste that in the chat. So if there is anybody that feels like they want to go and help Nathan get to 15,000 subscribers, just click the link and I'll be rounding up the show in 2 minutes. Anyone else got anything to say? Arwin? Sleeping Warrior? Anybody?
No.
No? Okay then. Right, in that case, I shall round up. Thank you everybody for stopping by. It's been very entertaining. And I'll have a show tomorrow night again. John, do you have a show tomorrow or is it Tuesday?
Show's on Tuesday, 2 p.m. U.S. Central, 8 p.m. UK. That's Tuesdays and Thursdays. And Ball Busters. Every Saturday, 2 p.m. U.S. Central, 8 p.m. UK. Be here or be sphere.
Yeah.
And if you want the real Globebusters, they'll be on tonight in less than an hour.
With the electric universe, electric gravity, electric invisible three-toed gnomes. Good job.
Right, thank you everybody. I'm going to round up. It's been great. Thank you everyone stopping by in the chat, and I'll see you all tomorrow.